The first raven came in the hour before dawn, when Casterly rock was still black against the sea, and even the gulls had not yet begun their shrieking. Tywin Lannister read by the light of 3 candles, their flames held steady by the stillness of his solar, their wax pooling like old ivory upon the iron holder beside his hand. He had slept little. He often slept little. Sleep was for men who had earned the luxury of trusting the world to continue in their absence, and Tywin had never trusted the world at all. The message was written in a merchant's cipher, plain enough for his eyes, and useless to most others. It had come from King's Landing by way of Lannisport, forwarded through men whose names did not appear in any ledger and whose loyalty was purchased in coin, fear, or both. Tywin disliked relying on whispers, but he disliked ignorance more. A lord who waited for formal letters was a lord who learned things after they had already killed him. Jon Arryn has visited the armorer Tobho Mott twice in 3 weeks. The king's brother accompanied him on the second occasion. The boy apprenticed there is said to be Robert Skett. Black of hair, blue of eye, broad for his age. The Hand has also made discreet inquiry into other base-born children of his grace. Tywin read the lines once. Then again, his face did not change. Outside the tall window, the sea struck the base of the rock with a patient, grinding fury. He set the parchment down, reached for the second message, and broke the seal with the small knife he kept beside the inkstone. This one was from Pycelle, though the Grand Maester never wrote anything dangerous directly. His words wandered through concerns of royal health, expenses of the court, the Queen's temper, the King's increasing appetite for wine and sport. Buried in the middle, as if it were nothing, was a sentence Tywin read with a stillness so complete that the servant at the door would have thought him carved. Lord Arryn has requested from the library a volume concerning the lineages of the great houses, particularly those of Baratheon, Durrandon, Lannister, and Targaryen blood. The third message had no seal at all. Varys never used one when a thing mattered. The spider had not written in his own hand, of course, but Tywin knew the flavor of him. Sweet, careful, perfumed with helpfulness and poison. The Hand asks old questions, my lord. Old questions sometimes wake older answers. Lord Stannis hears what Lord Arryn hears, and says less than any man at court, which in him may be taken for thunder. His Grace's children remain beautiful, golden, and beloved. Tywin placed that parchment atop the others. Golden, Yahoo. The word sat there like a dagger laid politely on velvet. For a long while, he did not move. The first pale suggestion of day began to soften the eastern edge of the window, turning the sea from black iron to beaten lead. In that gray light, Casterly Rock seemed not a seat of power but a tomb raised above the waves, filled with all the dead Lannisters who had believed themselves permanent. Baratheon seed was strong. Everyone knew it, though few troubled themselves to say so unless there was a reason. Orys Baratheon had had black hair. His sons had had black hair. Through storms, marriages, rebellions, and royal favor, the Baratheons had stamped themselves upon their children with the stubbornness of their own sigil. Black hair, blue eyes, hard bones, loud voices, stronger bodies than wits. Robert had scattered bastards across the realm with the carelessness of a man throwing bones to hounds, and the realm had accepted them because they looked like him. Every one of them, if reports were true. Yet Joffrey was golden, Myrcella golden, Tommen golden. Children took after mothers. It happened often enough. 3 children, all favoring their mother, was convenient but not impossible. Tywin had built his life on refusing to be ruled by possibility when probability had already bared its teeth. His mind did not run first to shame. Shame was for lesser men, a soft word used by septons and singers. His mind ran to consequence. If Jon Arryn found proof and placed it before Robert Baratheon, Cersei would die. Jaime would die if Robert could reach him. The children would die. Not because Robert was just, but because Robert was Robert. A great drunken hammer who saw every problem as something to be smashed until it no longer resembled itself. He would split the realm open. He would call for Lannister blood. He would make their name a song for fools, a gutter jest, a lesson in monstrous pride. And after the killing, the wolves, roses, stags, and vipers would come sniffing at the corpse. Tywin rose. He crossed to the window and looked down from the rock. Beneath him, the world was small. The harbor, the town, the gulls turning in the dawn. Men like to say that from Casterly Rock, a Lannister could see half the world. Tywin knew better. From high places, men saw only what distance allowed. The closer danger stood, the more likely it was to be hidden beneath one's own roof. His thoughts went, unbidden and unwelcome, to Joanna. Not the dead woman laid in state, not the memory polished by grief until it became something cleaner than life, but Joanna as she had been. Clear-eyed, amused, able to wound him with truth and make him grateful for it. She had seen too much in the twins when they were young. She had separated them once. He had known there had been some childhood impropriety, some foolishness born of mirrors and vanity, and the unnatural closeness of two beautiful children praised too much by fools. He had dismissed it because Joanna was alive then, and Joanna handled what lay within the walls while he handled the realm beyond them. Then Joanna had died, and with her the last person in the world who could speak to him without measuring the cost. Tywin turned from the window sharply, as if the thought had been an insult offered aloud. He went to his desk, took a fresh sheet of parchment, and began to write. To Sir Adam Marbrand, he commanded quiet readiness. To Kevin, he sent for immediate attendance, without explanation. To Pycelle, he wrote 3 lines only. Delay Lord Arryn where you can. Report each inquiry. Preserve nothing that may be used against us. He paused before writing the last message. It was to Cersei, and through Cersei to Jaime. He had not addressed both his elder children together in private for years, not since the last time he had found Jaime too near his sister and Cersei too pleased by being looked at. He had made Jaime a knight. A knight had duties. He had married Cersei to a king. A queen had uses. He had placed them where they would strengthen the house. Somehow, as always, children found ways to turn inheritance into appetite. Come to Casterly Rock at once, he wrote to Cersei. Bring no unnecessary household. Tell the king it concerns your father's health. He sanded the ink, folded the parchment, and sealed it with gold wax. For Jaime, he wrote nothing. A Kingsguard knight could not simply be summoned away without notice. Besides, Jaime would come if Cersei told him to. That, Tywin understood now, had always been the problem. When Kevin entered, the sky had brightened fully. His brother came without ornament, hair still damp from hurried washing, tunic fastened imperfectly at the throat. He saw the parchments on the desk, saw Tywin's expression, and stopped a few paces inside the door. Is it war? Kevin asked. Not yet. Kevin absorbed that with the grim patience of a man who knew that not yet often meant soon. Robert? In a fashion. Tywin handed him the first report. Then the second. Then the third. Kevin read in silence. He was not as brilliant as some men fancied themselves, nor as ruthless as Tywin, but he had sense, which was rarer and of greater use. As his eyes moved across the words, color faded from his face. When he finished, he did not ask whether it could be true. That was why Tywin valued him. The children, Kevin said. Yes. All 3? Do you imagine one would be less fatal? Kevin folded the parchment carefully, though his fingers had stiffened. Robert will kill them. Robert must not know. Jon Arryn must be contained. Kevin looked up. Contained how? Tywin's gaze rested on him until Kevin lowered his eyes a fraction. There were words brothers did not need. I see, Kevin said softly. No, you see only the edge of it. Stannis is involved. That struck deeper. Kevin exhaled through his nose. Stannis will not be bought. Nor flattered, nor frightened easily. He must be isolated before he can speak with certainty. If he accuses without proof, he is a grasping younger brother. If he accuses with proof, he is the rightful king. Kevin glanced toward the sealed letter. And Cersei? She will come. And Jaime? Tywin's mouth tightened. Jaime has always followed where she leads. There was a silence between them, not of uncertainty but of shared memory. Jaime at 10, golden and laughing, already dangerous with a sword. Cersei beside him, same face, colder eyes. Two halves of a single pride. People had praised their beauty as if beauty were virtue. Servants had smiled at their closeness. Lords had joked that the twins were inseparable. Tywin had accepted admiration because admiration for his children was admiration for House Lannister. He had failed to ask what inseparable meant when no one was watching. "What do you mean to do?" Kevin asked. "Save the house." It was not an answer, but Kevin knew it was the only one he would receive that morning. Tywin gathered the 3 reports and held them over the candle flame. One by one they blackened, curled, and became ash. He watched until the last word was gone. That was the first rule of survival. A secret written down was not a secret. A secret spoken aloud belonged to whoever heard it. A secret guessed by enemies was already a blade at the throat. By midday, ravens had flown east. By dusk, men loyal to Lannister coin began moving through King's Landing with quiet instructions. A serving man in the Tower of the Hand found himself dismissed and replaced by another. A stableboy who had carried messages for Lord Arryn was arrested for theft, though nothing had been stolen. The genealogy volume Lord Arryn wanted was temporarily misplaced. A woman who knew where one of Robert's bastards slept took silver and a warning and left the city before sunrise. None of it was enough. Tywin knew that. Men who tried to smother wildfire with cloaks deserved to burn. He needed to see Cersei's face. He needed to look upon Jaime and measure whether guilt had made him foolish, whether love had made him weak, whether either of them understood what they had done. 3 days later, another raven came. The Queen travels west with a small party. The King remains at court, irritated but unconcerned. Sir Jaime remains in King's Landing. Tywin read that and felt for the first time something almost like contempt sharpen into anger. Jaime remained in King's Landing. Cersei was obeying then, but only halfway. Or perhaps she thought distance would protect him. Perhaps she thought herself clever. Children, dot. He crushed the parchment in his fist, then smoothed it again because anger left marks and marks invited questions. When Cersei arrived at the Rock, she did so in a litter draped with crimson silk, escorted by Lannister guards and 2 ladies who looked terrified of the sea wind. She emerged with the practiced grace of queenship, chin high, golden hair netted in rubies, green eyes bright with annoyance. She had Robert's bruising manner in her walk now, or perhaps she had always walked as though the world were something she meant to punish for disappointing her. Tywin received her not in the great hall, but in the old council chamber, where the walls were thick, the doors double-barred, and no servant could hear unless he had first learned to listen through stone. Cersei entered smiling. "Father," she said, "you looked disappointingly well. Sit." Her smile thinned. "I left the capital because your letter implied urgency." "Sit." She sat. Tywin remained standing. He let the silence grow until it began to work upon her. Cersei had courage but not patience. She endured threat better than uncertainty. "What has happened?" she demanded at last. "Jon Arryn knows." It was a clean blow. He had chosen it for that reason. The color did not leave her face entirely, but something changed around her mouth, a tightening quickly buried. Her eyes sharpened, then glittered with the first instinct of denial. "Knows what?" Tywin looked at her. Cersei laughed once. "If you mean some court slander, I mean your children." She went very still. There it was. Not confession. Worse. Recognition. Tywin felt the world narrow to a single point. Until that moment, some cold and disciplined part of him had allowed room for misinterpretation. Reports were reports. Men saw patterns where ambition led them. Jon Arryn might have suspected falsely. Varys might have embroidered. Pycelle might have misunderstood. But Cersei's face had spoken before her mouth could lie. "Who told you?" she asked. The stupidity of the question nearly made him strike her. Do you think that matters? It matters if someone is spreading filth about the royal children. The royal children, Tywin repeated. Yes, let us call them that while we still can. Cersei rose. I will not be spoken to like some. You will be spoken to as the woman who has placed this house within one whisper of annihilation. Her anger flared because anger was easier than fear. I gave you heirs with Lannister blood. I gave you a prince who looks like us, not like that drunken brute. Arden. You gave Robert Baratheon bastards born of incest and seated one of them in the line of succession. He is not a bastard. He is mine. And Jaime's. The name hung between them. Cersei's eyes burned. She did not deny it. Perhaps pride prevented her. Perhaps some part of her was relieved to have the lies stripped away before someone who could not be charmed by it. Jaime loves me, she said. Tywin's voice dropped, and in that quiet there was more danger than shouting could have carried. Jaime is a knight of the Kingsguard. You are Robert's queen. Love is a word singers use to make treason sound pretty. Treason? She stepped toward him. Robert shames me with every tavern girl and camp follower in the realm. He struck me on my wedding night. He calls another woman's name in my bed. You gave me to him. I gave you a crown. You sold me to a beast. I made you queen of the 7 kingdoms. You made me his broodmare. And you could not even do that properly. The slap came before thought. Tywin's hand struck her cheek hard enough to turn her face. The sound cracked against the chamber walls and died there. Cersei touched her cheek slowly. When she looked back at him, hatred stood naked in her eyes. For a heartbeat, he saw not the queen, not the woman who had dared the impossible, but the girl she had been after Joanna's death. Fierce, beautiful, convinced that wanting a thing made it hers by right. If Robert learns, Tywin said, he will kill you. He will kill Jaime. He will kill Joffrey, Myrcella, and Tommen. He will do it with his own hands if no one stops him. Then he will call his banners and come west. The realm will cheer him for it. No, I don't. She swallowed. There. Wait. Fear at last. Robert will not learn. Jon Arryn already suspects. Stannis suspects. Others may follow. You have not hidden sin. You have paraded proof in silk and gold for 12 years. Pycelle is ours. Pycelle is useful, not omnipotent. Then kill Jon Arryn. Tywin studied her. She had said it quickly, almost carelessly. That too was Joanna's absence. No one had ever taught Cersei that some murders needed silence before decision. Not because murder was wrong, but because haste made it crude. Lord Arryn is old, Tywin said. Old men die. Then let him. That may not be enough. Stannis? Stannis must be made to look ambitious before he looks truthful. If he runs to Robert with accusation alone, he can be dismissed. If he brings proof, he becomes a king. Cersei paced away, one hand still near the reddening mark on her cheek. Robert would never believe him. Robert hates Stannis. Robert hates many men. He hates being cuckolded more. She flinched, and Tywin was glad of it. Jaime must leave King's Landing, he said. She turned sharply. No. Yes. He is Lord Commander's sworn brother. He cannot simply abandon. Do not insult me with vows now. He is safest near me. He is the danger near you. Her lips parted, but no answer came. From this day, Tywin continued, you will not be alone with him. Not in your chambers, not in the gardens, not behind a door, not behind a curtain, not behind the curtain, not behind the lies you have mistaken for walls. You will write to him and tell him to obey my next instruction without question. He will not leave me because you command it. Then he will leave because you ask it. I know which of us he obeys. Do. Cersei looked away first. It was not victory. A father did not win by proving his children diseased. He merely learned how deep the rot had grown. "And the children?" she asked, quieter. "The children will be watched, taught, guarded. Joffrey most of all." At the mention of her eldest, defiance returned. "Joffrey is strong. Joffrey is vain, cruel, and stupid. He's a prince. He's a boy who thinks rank is armor. It is not. It is bait." Cersei's expression twisted. "You never loved any of us." Tywin almost laughed. It would have been a terrible sound. "Love did not raise our house from your grandfather's ruin. Love did not drown the rains. Love did not make kings seek our alliance and lords fear our displeasure. You speak of love as though it were coin. It spends poorly. You loved mother." The chamber changed. Tywin did not move, but the air seemed to harden around him. Cersei saw it and knew she had stepped where even she should not. For once, she had the sense to be silent. "At dawn," Tywin said, "you will return to King's Landing. You will smile at Robert. You will write to Jaime before you sleep tonight. You will send me the names of every servant, guard, septa, washerwoman, and fool who has ever had reason to think you and your brother were too familiar. You will do this without complaint, without delay, and without imagining you can soften the truth by concealing some piece of it from me. Me. And if I refuse, then you are already dead. You simply have not had the courtesy to fall down." Cersei stood before him, breathing hard, cheek-marked, crownless in her father's house. For all her jewels, for all her beauty, she looked suddenly like a woman trapped inside the consequences of a girl's arrogance. "You will not hurt Jaime," she said. Tywin's answer was immediate. "Jaime has hurt us all." When she left, he did not watch her go. He listened to the bolts slide shut behind her and stood in the silence she left behind. That night, Tywin returned to his desk. Another candle burned. Another raven waited. He wrote to King's Landing again, this time to Jaime. "Come west under pretext of escorting the Queen's next household guard rotation. Delay and you imperil her." He sealed it. He knew Jaime would come. Not for duty, not for fear, not for House Lannister, for her. Jaime arrived in rain. It came slanting from the sea in cold silver sheets, turning the road to black mud and beating the banners flat against their poles. His white cloak had darkened at the hem. His horse steamed, and the men with him looked miserable enough to curse any lord who had ordered such travel. Jaime himself rode as if weather were an insult beneath his notice. Even soaked, even weary, he had the insolent beauty that made songs easy and judgment difficult. Gold hair plastered to his brow, green eyes bright beneath the wet. Sword at his side, hand resting near it with the casual intimacy of a man who trusted steel more than prayer. Tywin watched him enter the lower yard from an arched gallery above. He had not gone down to greet him. Fathers greeted sons who returned from honor. Lords greeted useful bannermen. Jaime came as a problem. Cersei stood farther back in the shadows. She had asked to see him first. Tywin had refused. She had raged, then pleaded, then grown cold and queenly. He preferred the rage. It showed its teeth honestly. Below, Jaime dismounted and gave his reins to a groom. He looked up, found his father immediately, and smiled. It was a beautiful smile, careless as sunlight on a drawn blade. That smile had won him forgiveness all his life. Tywin turned away before Jaime could mistake recognition for welcome. They met in the old hall beneath the rock, where the first Lannisters had once received vassals when the castle was more fortress than palace. Torches burned in iron sconces shaped like lions' heads. Their light moved over walls veined with red and gold, over shields taken from dead enemies, over the long table polished dark as dried blood. No singers had ever performed in that room. No feasts had warmed it. It was a place for terms, judgments, and endings. Jaime entered without his escort. He had changed into dry clothing, though his hair was still damp. His white cloak hung clean from one shoulder. Tywin wondered who had rushed to clean it, and whether they understood that no washing could do the work required. "Father," Jaime said. "Sir Jaime." A flicker passed through his eyes. "Good. Good." He heard the distance. "You sent for me, as if the realm would end if I finished my wine before riding." "It may." Jaime glanced around. "No Kevin? No Maester? No headsman? You disappoint me. You have rarely required help disappointing yourself." The smile faded by a degree. Tywin let him stand. Men revealed themselves in discomfort. Jaime pretended not to feel it, which meant he felt it keenly. "Cersei is here," Jaime said. "Yes. I would see her." "No." The word struck harder than a longer answer. Jaime's jaw tightened. "She is my sister." Tywin looked at him. There was silence. Jaime's hand twitched near his sword, not toward drawing. Even Jaime was not that far gone. But the instinct lived in him, a boy's resentment armed by a master's skill. "Careful," Tywin said. Jaime gave a short laugh without humor. "Is that why I'm here? To be scolded? You are here because Jon Arryn knows." This time the blow landed differently than it had with Cersei. Jaime did not ask what. He did not deny. He did not pale. He simply became very still, and behind the green of his eyes, something old and guarded shut a door. Tywin felt no satisfaction. Only confirmation after confirmation, each one heavier than the last. "Who else?" Jaime asked. "Stannis suspects. Pycelle delays. Varys watches. Littlefinger likely knows enough to profit if not enough to act. Your sister knows I know. Now you know." "Ah." Jaime looked toward the closed doors, as if Cersei might be beyond them. "Did she tell you?" Her face did. That wounded him. Tywin saw it, despised it, and stored it for use. "Do you understand what you have done?" he asked. Jaime's answer came too quickly. "Loved her." Tywin crossed the room and struck him. Jaime could have avoided it. That was the worst of it. His reflexes were too fine. His body trained past thought. He saw the hand coming. He accepted the blow. His head turned, slowly, and when he faced Tywin again, there was a red mark across his cheek, matching the one Cersei had borne days earlier. Twins still. "Do not dress this in songs," Tywin said. "You broke your vows, shamed your cloak, cuckolded the king, endangered your children, and placed a sword over every Lannister throat from the Rock to Lannisport. If that is love, then love is a half-wit with a torch in a granary." Jaime touched his cheek and smiled faintly. "You should have been a Septon. I should have made you heir." That pierced where anger had not. Jaime's face changed. The old argument rose between them, familiar as a scar. The white cloak, the stolen inheritance, Aerys's spite, Jaime's choice, Tywin's fury. But beneath it now lay something fouler. Jaime had not merely abandoned Casterly Rock. He had abandoned it for Cersei's bed. "You wanted me to be something I never wanted," Jaime said. "I wanted you to be a Lannister." "I am." "No, you are Cersei's creature in a white cloak." Jaime's eyes flashed. "Say what you like of me. I intend to, but not of her." Tywin studied his son. There it was, the center of the sickness. Not lust alone, not folly alone, but worship. Cersei had made herself Jaime's kingdom, and Jaime, with all his gifts, had bent the knee. "You think that noble," Tywin said. "You think standing between her and consequence makes you brave. It makes you useless. I killed a king at 17. You saved yourself from burning with the rest of the city, and have been dining on the tail ever since." Jaime took one step forward. "You know nothing of that. I know enough. You killed Aerys, and then sat on his throne while the city bled. You let the realm name you Oathbreaker because you were too proud to explain and too vain to endure being misunderstood without making a performance of it." Something raw opened in Jaime's face and vanished almost at once. "And what would you have had me do? Be more than a sword. For a moment, only the torches spoke. Rain struck somewhere far above them, muffled by stone. The sea groaned in the belly of the rock. Jaime looked suddenly younger, not boyish, never that, but like a man whose armor had been made for one kind of battle and found useless in another. Tywin returned to the table and poured wine into 2 cups. He did not offer one. He drank because his throat had grown dry, and because anger without discipline was indulgence. "Robert must die," Jaime said quietly. Tywin set down the cup. Perhaps. Jaime laughed. "If he learns? If Robert dies too soon, before we have controlled the ground beneath him, every ambitious lord in the realm will ask why. If Robert dies too late, he kills us. Timing, Jaime. It is the difference between execution and butchery." Jaime's lip curled. "You've always had a gift for making murder sound like account keeping. And you have always mistaken contempt for wisdom. What do you want from me?" At last, a useful question. Jaime waited. "You will return to King's Landing. You will resume your duties. You will not be alone with Cersei. You will not touch her. You will not speak with her where servants may hear or shadows may listen. You will obey every instruction I send through Pycelle, Kevin, or Adam Marbrand. If Jon Arryn lives long enough to speak, you will be ready to remove Cersei and the children from the capital before Robert can reach them." "Nanya." Jaime looked at him as though he had spoken madness. "You send me back to her and order me not to be near her. I send a Kingsguard knight back to the king. That cloak stopped meaning what men pretend it means a long time ago. That cloak may yet keep you alive. Robert will not suspect what stands before him in white, because Robert sees what he wants to hit and little else. Nah. And Cersei? We'll do as she is told." Jaime's smile returned, sharper and uglier. "You don't know her. I know her better than you do." "No," Jaime said softly. "You know what you wish she were. You know what use she might serve. You know the value of her womb, her crown, her name. You don't know her." Tywin did not answer immediately. It was not because the words had no effect. It was because they had too much, and he would not grant Jaime the sight of it. "You are to leave before dawn," he said. "I will see her first." "No." Jaime moved then, not toward his sword, but toward the door. 2 guards opened it from the outside before he reached it, spears lowered. Lannister men. His men by blood if not command. Jaime stopped. He could have killed them both in the space between breaths. Everyone in the room knew it. Tywin spoke to his back. "If you force this, you prove every fear I have. If you draw on Lannister guards to reach your sister, you make yourself not a son but a liability." Jaime's shoulders rose and fell once. "You would imprison me?" he asked. "I would bury you if the alternative were the destruction of our house." Jaime turned. For the first time, all mockery had left him. "Would you?" Tywin met his gaze. He thought of Joanna again, and hated Jaime for making him do so. He thought of Cersei as a child with her mother's hair, but not her mercy. He thought of Joffrey, who carried his name in secret and Robertson. He thought of lords laughing, of songs, of the rock, diminished, of all that his father had nearly lost through softness, and all that Tywin had restored through terror. "Yes," he said. Jaime believed him. That was something. He did not leave the hall by force. He stood very still while the guards waited, while the torches guttered, while Tywin watched him with the merciless patience of a man assessing whether a cracked pillar could still bear weight. At last Jaime said, "Tell her I came." "No." "Tell her." "No." The word did what swords could not. Jaime's face hardened into the beautiful emptiness the court knew. He bowed, perfectly, mockingly, painfully. "My lord." Then he turned and walked out. Cersei found a way to him anyway. Tywin had expected it, because expecting disobedience was the beginning of governing Cersei. She bribed no guard. She threatened no servant. She did something simpler. She waited in the sept, where even Tywin's men hesitated to bar the queen from prayer. Jaime entered shortly before dawn, when the candles before the mother and the warrior had burned low. Tywin did not witness the meeting. He learned of it from the guard he had hidden behind the screen, a deaf man trained to read lips. They had not touched. That was the report's first line, and Tywin noted the surprise in the guard's careful script. Cersei had wept. Jaime had not. She had told him their father meant to cage them. Jaime had told her to endure. She had asked if he loved her. Jaime had said yes. She had asked if he loved the children. He had said yes, though not quickly enough, the guard thought. She had told him Joffrey must be king one day or all of it had been for nothing. At that, Jaime had looked away. Tywin read the report twice. There lay another danger. Jaime loved Cersei. Cersei loved power through Jaime, through Joffrey, through anything that reflected her back larger than life. Their sin was shared, but not identical. A weakness with two shapes was harder to bind. By dawn, Jaime rode east. Cersei stood upon a balcony above the sea to watch him go. Her face was pale, her hair unbound in the wind, her hands resting on the stone as if she meant to crush it. Tywin came to stand beside her. Neither spoke until Jaime and his escort passed beneath the gate and vanished down the road. "I hate you," Cersei said. "I know. He is your son. Yes. I am your daughter. Yes. Does that mean nothing? It means I have not yet sent either of you to the Silent Sisters." She laughed then, but the sound broke. "You think you can command this away?" "No. I think I can command you. The rest I will manage." Cersei looked at him, eyes wet and venomous. "One day you will learn there are things even you cannot manage." Tywin watched the road long after Jaime disappeared. "I learned that the day your mother died," he said. Cersei had no answer. Perhaps she had not expected truth. Perhaps he had not meant to give it. Far above, a raven lifted from the rookery and turned east toward King's Landing. Jon Arryn began dying in a room full of men who wanted different things from his death. That was the way of King's Landing. No end belonged wholly to the gods. Every fever had a faction, every cough an audience, every final word of value measured before the body cooled. The hand of the king lay beneath heavy blankets despite the summer heat, his long face sunken, his eyes yellowed at the edges, his breath dragging in his chest like a door over stone. He had been a tall man once, spare and dignified, with the weary patience of one who had raised kings and buried hopes. Now his hands trembled against the coverlet. A cup of watered wine stood untouched beside him. The chamber smelled of sweat, boiled herbs, old parchment, and fear. Grand Maester Pycelle bent over him with a spoon. "Only a little, my lord," Pycelle murmured. "For the pain." Jon's lips moved. No sound came. Pycelle leaned closer, beard brushing the blanket. He looked ancient enough to be harmless, which had always been his preferred armor. His chain clinked softly as he steadied the dying man's jaw and let the draft pass between cracked lips. Some of it spilled down Jon's chin. Pycelle dabbed it away with the tenderness of a grandfather. Stannis Baratheon watched from near the door. He had not removed his gloves. He rarely did unless duty required it, and even then he seemed offended by the intimacy of bare skin. His jaw was clenched hard enough to sharpen the hollows of his cheeks. He had the look of a man listening to a lie and memorizing its exact shape. "He worsens," Stannis said. Pycelle straightened slowly, a performance of age. "The fever has sunk deep, my lord. I do all that my arts permit." "None contempt. Your arts have permitted little." The old maester blinked with wounded dignity. "Lord Arryn is of advanced years. The body becomes a fragile vessel. He was well enough last week. A summer sickness may strike swiftly." "Conveniently." Pycelle's eyes flickered. "My lord." Stannis stepped closer to the bed. Jon's eyes moved toward him. Something like recognition stirred in them. His hand twitched atop the blanket. "The seed," Jon whispered. The words were barely sound, but Stannis heard them. So did Pycelle. So did Varys, who stood near the wall in violet silk. hands folded into his sleeves, face composed in sorrow gentle enough to be painted. Stannis bent. "Say it again." Jon's throat worked. "Strong." Pycelle moved with surprising speed for so frail a creature. "He must rest." Stannis seized his wrist. The room changed. Pycelle's face remained soft, but fear flashed in his eyes. Stannis held him as one might hold a snake behind the head. "No more," Stannis said. "My lord, the medicine. No more." Jon's fingers clawed weakly at the blanket, his eyes fixed on Stannis, pleading or commanding. Perhaps both. The old man who had fostered him, who had stood between Robert and folly more times than anyone could count, was trying to drag one truth from the dark before it swallowed him. Stannis leaned so close his shadow fell across Jon's face. "I know. Rest now." It was a lie. Stannis did not know. Not yet. He suspected. He had counted bastards, studied hair, listened to Jon's mutterings, watched the Queen's children pass beneath golden banners with their Lannister faces bright as polished coins. But suspicion was not knowledge, and Stannis Baratheon hated the space between the two as other men hated cowardice. Jon Arryn breathed once more, shallowly. Then again. Then not. Pycelle bowed his head. "The stranger has come." Stannis released his wrist. The old maester stepped back, rubbing where the glove had pressed bruises into parchment skin. Varys made the sign of the seven with exquisite delicacy. "A great servant of the realm has passed." Stannis turned on him. "Do not." Varys lowered his eyes. "Grief sharpens us all differently, my lord. Did you know?" The eunuch looked up, soft and sad. "No, my lord." What he was investigating. Lord Arryn's duties were many. The realm is large, and concern sat heavily on him. Stannis hated him. It was plain in every rigid line of him. But hatred did not make Varys careless. The spider could not be struck into truth like a common guard. He would bleed courtesy until the questioner drowned in it. Stannis looked back at Jon's body. The seed is strong. He had heard it more than once now. From Jon. From the book. From the living evidence of Robert's bastards. The words had seemed at first a clue. Now they sounded like an accusation uttered by the dead. "Seal his chambers," Stannis said. Pycelle raised a trembling hand. "My lord, such authority rests with the king. The king is drunk." Varys sighed faintly. "His grace will be devastated. His grace will remember Lord Arryn existed when someone tells him at supper." Pycelle frowned. "That is unkind." "It is true." Stannis moved to the writing desk. Papers lay arranged too neatly. That told him something. Jon had not been neat when fever took him. Someone had been here. Someone had touched what was not theirs. He opened drawers. Genealogies. Tax records. Letters from the Vale. Nothing. The volume they had studied together was gone. "Where is the book?" he asked. Pycelle blinked again. "Book?" Stannis' voice became flat. "Do not make me repeat myself." Varys tilted his head. "The histories of the great houses, perhaps?" Lord Arryn had taken interest in several such volumes. "I fear many books passed through many hands in the Red Keep." "Nay. Brennan. Stannis crossed the room in 2 strides and seized a small table. He overturned it. Cups shattered. A bowl of leeches burst across the floor like black fruit. Pycelle gasped. Varys did not move. "Find it," Stannis said. The door opened before either man could answer. Cersei entered in green silk, gold at her throat, 2 ladies behind her and Sir Meryn Trant outside in the hall. Her face wore solemnity like a veil, appropriate, translucent, easily lifted. "Lord Arryn is dead?" she asked. Stannis looked at her hair. Gold. He looked at her eyes. Green. He thought of Joffrey's smirk, Myrcella's curls, Tommen's soft round face. He thought of Robert's black-haired bastards in brothels, shops, and alleys. He thought of Jaime Lannister standing beside the throne with one hand on his sword and too little interest in anything except where the Queen stood. Cersei met his stare and For one instant, knew. Stannis saw that too. "You should tell the king," she said. "I will." Her mouth curved with queenly sorrow. "He loved Lord Arryn." "No," Stannis said. "Lord Arryn loved him." Cersei's expression hardened by a hair. "Grief excuses much, but not discourtesy." "Then take comfort. I am not grieving." He left her there beside the dead hand, and as he passed through the door, he felt the whole Red Keep leaning inward around him. The corridors seemed narrower than they had that morning. The guards looked longer at his face. Servants vanished when he approached. A boy carrying linens turned and fled down another passage as if Stannis' shadow had teeth. He went first to his chambers, then to the rookery. No letter could be trusted if sent openly. No servant could be trusted if paid once by another. He wrote to Dragonstone in his own hand, then burned the first draft because it said too much, and the second because it said too little. The third was short enough. "Prepare the ships. Admit no Queen's man to the island. I return before the week is done." He sealed it with black wax. Then he wrote to his wife, though not because Selyse would understand. Selyse understood only grievance, piety, and the peculiar comfort of being slighted. But Dragonstone had walls. Dragonstone had loyal men. Dragonstone was not King's Landing, and that was enough. When he returned from the rookery, Davos Seaworth waited near his door. The Onion Knight wore plain brown, salt still somehow seeming part of him no matter how long he spent ashore. He bowed. "My lord, you heard." "Aye. From whom?" "Everyone soon enough." Stannis grunted. "Too soon." Davos glanced down the corridor. "Is there danger?" "There is always danger here. More than yesterday." Stannis considered the man. Davos was lowborn, honest, and sensible. Three qualities that barred advancement in most courts, and made him nearly priceless in this one. "Yes," Stannis said. Davos accepted that without demanding what he had not been offered. "Then we should leave." "We? If you'll have me. I do not recall dismissing you." A faint smile touched Davos' mouth and vanished. "No, my lord." Stannis entered his chamber. Davos followed. The door shut. By evening, King Robert had been told. He roared, drank, wept, cursed, called for more wine, and demanded to know who would help him hunt on the morrow. Cersei comforted him publicly with a hand on his arm. Jaime stood behind the king's chair, expression unreadable. Pycelle spoke of age and fever. Varys spoke of loss. Littlefinger watched the room as if each face were a coin whose weight he meant to know. Stannis watched them all. Robert did not ask what Jon had been investigating. He did not ask why his oldest friend had died whispering of seed. He did not ask why Stannis would not drink. That night, Stannis left the feast early. By dawn, he was gone from King's Landing. Cersei learned it before breakfast. She sent word to Tywin at once. "Father, Lord Stannis has fled to Dragonstone." Tywin received the message 2 days later, and understood immediately that the game had narrowed. Jon Arryn was dead, but his suspicion had not died with him. It had hardened inside Stannis Baratheon, and Stannis was not a man who forgot a debt, a slight, or a truth. Tywin stood over the letter for a long time. Then, he summoned Kevan. "Jon Arryn?" Kevan asked. "Dead." Kevan closed his eyes briefly. "And Stannis?" "Alive. Suspicious. Beyond easy reach." "That is unfortunate." Tywin looked east, though no window in the room faced that way. "No," he said. "That is war, waiting for a crown." Eddard Stark came south beneath banners that felt too heavy for the wind. The road had been long, the heat worsening as they descended from the clean air of the north into the crowded stink of the Riverlands, and then the greater stink of King's Landing. Ned had never liked the south. It seemed to him a place where stone sweated, men smiled too much, and every courtesy concealed a hook. The capital rose before him in tiers of red walls, crooked roofs, domes, towers, and smoke, all pressed between river, hill, and sea. Above it, the Red Keep stood like a wound that had learned to become a castle. Sansa gazed at it as though the songs had opened their gates for her. Arya wrinkled her nose. "It smells dead," Arya said. Sansa hissed, "Arya!" Ned almost smiled. "Cities have their own smells. Winterfell smells better." "That it does." His smile faded as the party passed beneath the gate. Men and women crowded the streets, shouting, laughing, begging, selling, accusing. Children darted between horses. A pot of something brown emptied from an upper window and splashed near a gold cloak's boot. The gold cloak cursed upward. Somewhere a woman screamed, then laughed, and Ned could not tell whether danger had passed or merely changed shape. He thought of Jon Arryn. The memory sat heavily on him. Jon had been more than Robert's hand. He had been a second father to Ned, a patient voice in the Vale when grief and duty had first begun shaping him. Jon had brought him south once before, to rebellion, blood, and Lyanna's dying bed. Now Jon was dead, and Lysa's letter had named murder. The Lannisters, she had written. The Queen. Ned did not like suspicion without proof. He liked even less that he believed it. At the Red Keep, Robert greeted him with a crushing embrace, the smell of wine strong before noon. The king had grown heavier since Ned last saw him, broader in belly, redder in face, louder in every grief. He cursed Jon's death, cursed the heat, cursed the journey Ned had taken too slowly, cursed his squires, praised Sansa's beauty, laughed at Arya's scowl, and demanded a feast by nightfall. Cersei greeted him afterward. She was flawless in gold, her smile composed, her green eyes giving away nothing but what she wished men to believe. Ned bowed. She inclined her head. "Lord Stark, the king has longed for your counsel. The realm has lost a better counselor than I. Lord Arryn was much loved." "By some?" Ned said. Her smile did not alter. "By the king most of all." Ned looked across the yard where Robert was already roaring at a servant about wine. "Hey," he said softly. In his way, Jaime Lannister stood near the steps in white armor bright enough to make the sun seem dull. He looked as he had in the throne room years before, though older, harder, carrying mockery like a second sword. Ned saw again the young knight seated on the Iron Throne, golden and smiling while Aerys's blood cooled. Some memories did not fade. They simply waited for the right light. "Lord Stark," Jaime said. "Sir Jaime. King's Landing is safer already. I had not known it was unsafe." Jaime's smile sharpened. "Then you will learn quickly." Cersei's gaze flicked to him. Not warning exactly. Something more controlled. Jaime lowered his eyes a fraction, and Ned, watching, filed the movement away without yet knowing why. The days that followed were full of offices, ledgers, petitions, debts, and disappointments. The realm Robert ruled was a man staggering beneath a cloak sewn from borrowed coin. The crown owed millions to Lord Tywin, more to the Faith, more to the Tyrells, more to men whose names Ned did not trust. Petyr Baelish explained it all with easy charm and nimble fingers, as though debt were a clever game played by those too sophisticated for honor. "Numbers can be persuaded, my lord," Littlefinger said one morning, smiling over a stack of accounts. "Can they?" "Oh yes. They are like men in that regard." "No. Then I prefer honest men." "How fortunate for honest men that someone does." Ned disliked him immediately, and trusted that dislike more than he trusted the man's accounts. Varys came by night more than day, appearing where he should not be with news he had no reason to know. He spoke of the king's temper, the queen's loneliness, the city's hunger, Stannis' departure. "Lord Stannis left in haste," Varys said, hands folded. "Grief takes men differently." "Indeed. Some weep, some drink, some flee to islands and bar their gates." Ned looked at him. "Why?" Varys sighed. "If only little birds understood the hearts of great stags." "You know more than you say." "My lord, I always know more than I say. It is the only reason I am still alive." Ned should have dismissed him. Instead, he listened, because Jon had died. Lysa was afraid, and Stannis Baratheon was not a man who fled anything without cause. He began where Jon had begun, though he did not know it at first. The armorer Tobho Mott received him with sweat shining on his bald head and pride in every word. The apprentice was a strong boy named Gendry, black-haired, blue-eyed, with a stubborn jaw that made Ned's chest tighten unexpectedly. Robert's face looked out from the boy, young and unspoiled by appetite. "You paid double for the boy," Mott said. "Who?" "Lord Arryn said the boy was not to want for training." "Did he say why?" "No, my lord." But the armorer's eyes shifted, and Ned knew there had been more. Fear sat in the shop like heat from the forge. When Ned returned 3 days later, Gendry was gone. "Gone," Ned said. Mott wiped his hands uselessly on his apron. "Taken to work on a commission outside the city." "By whom?" "A lord's man." "Which lord?" "I did not ask." Ned stepped closer. Mott was large, but he stepped back. "Which lord?" "I don't know, my lord. I swear it. The man had coin. He said the boy had kin in the west. He said it was arranged." West.e. Ned left with ice moving slowly through his blood. The next bastard was harder to find. A girl in a brothel, dead of fever according to one woman, sent away according to another, never there according to a third. Her mother had vanished. A boy near the gate of the gods had been removed by an uncle no neighbor had seen before. Each trail ended in coin, silence, or fear. Someone had moved ahead of him. Not clumsily, not in panic, methodically. He requested the lineage book. Pycelle took 2 days to find it, and another to send it, apologizing with such elaborate frailty that Ned nearly believed age alone had delayed him. The volume that arrived smelled faintly of damp. Several pages near the Baratheon histories had been loosened and repaired, not removed. That too obvious. Altered? Ned could not say. He read anyway. The seed is strong. He found the phrase in old accounts, in marriages to daughters of Tarth, Estermont, Swan, and even Lannister long before. Black of hair, black of hair, black of hair. The words repeated until they seemed less history than drumbeat. Joffrey had golden hair. Myrcella had golden hair. Tommen had golden hair. Ned shut the book. For a time he sat alone in the Tower of the Hand, listening to the city beyond the shutters. He had not wanted this. He had come to serve Robert, uncover Jon's murderer, and return north as soon as honor allowed. Instead, the truth opened beneath him like rotten ice. He thought of Sansa, promised to Joffrey. Sweet Sansa, who believed princes were as songs made them. He thought of Arya, fierce and careless. He thought of Catelyn, of Bran climbing walls, of Robb learning to rule in his absence, of Jon at the wall. He thought of Robert, who would answer this not as a king but as a wounded animal. If he told Robert at once, Cersei's children died. They were innocent of the sin that made them. Ned closed his eyes. Honor was not a path through snow, clear and white. It was a blade held in the dark, and sometimes one could not tell whose blood was on it until morning. He sent a message to Stannis. It did not reach Dragonstone. The rider was found in an alley near the mud gate with his throat opened and his purse untouched. Gold cloaks called it robbery because men paid to be blind often performed blindness loudly. Ned learned of it from Jory Castle, whose face had gone grim. "No money taken," Jory said. "No. You think someone knew? I think many know many things here. Should we send another?" Ned looked toward the window. Below, in the yard, Joffrey was striking a smaller boy with a blunted practice sword, while Sandor Clegane watched without expression. The prince laughed when the boy stumbled. His hair shone like beaten gold. "Not yet," Ned said. That evening, Cersei came to him. She did not request audience through proper channels. She appeared in the Godswood, where the heart tree's carved face looked out with red eyes that seemed sorrowful in this southern place. The tree was wrong here, pale and lonely, surrounded by walls and whispers. Ned had gone there for silence. He found the queen waiting. "Lord Stark," she said, "you have been busy. I am Hand of the King. You have been visiting smiths, brothels, libraries, and dead men's servants. That seems broader than governance." Ned faced her. "Jon Arryn was my friend. And mine." "No," Ned said. "He was not." Cersei smiled slightly. "Northern honesty. It has all the elegance of a boot. Did you kill him?" The smile disappeared. There were easier ways to ask. Safer ways. Ned had never been skilled at courtly circling when a straight road stood before him. Cersei stepped closer. "Take care. I have taken care. That is why I ask." "No. Jon Arryn died of fever. Jon Arryn died because he knew your children were not Robert's." Her face did not change enough to convict her before any court, but Ned saw the truth move behind her eyes. The queen was afraid, not shocked. "Afraid? Is that what Stannis told you?" she asked. "Stannis told me nothing." "Then you have built treason out of hair color. I have seen Robert's bastards. I have read the histories. I have followed Jon's footsteps as far as someone allowed." "Someone?" "Your father." That struck her deeper than the accusation itself. Her chin lifted. "My father is in the west. Your father reaches farther than most men ride." Cersei looked at the heart tree, then back at him. "What do you mean to do?" "Tell Robert." "No," she said, and the word came not as command but as naked instinct. "He is the king. He will kill them." Ned said nothing. "You know he will," she pressed. "You know the man you call friend. He will kill Joffrey, perhaps with his own hands. Myrcella too, if rage holds long enough. Tommen will cry, and Robert will kill him for sounding like me." Ned's jaw tightened. "They are children." "Yes. They are not his." "No." There it was, spoken in the Godswood beneath the pale tree. Not full confession before witnesses. Not proof, but enough between them. "You must leave," Ned said. Cersei stared. "Take your children and leave King's Landing before I speak to Robert. Go across the narrow sea if you must. Go to your father. I will not have their blood on my hands." For the first time, she seemed truly taken aback. "You think I should run? I think you should live. I am queen. You are a mother." Her eyes flashed. "Do not speak to me of motherhood. Then listen as a woman who knows Robert's wrath." Cersei laughed softly. "You are a fool." "So I have been told." "No, not because you are honorable. Honor I understand. It is a weapon men use to admire themselves. You are a fool because you think mercy offered openly remains mercy once others hear of it." Ned felt the chill then. "My father knows," she said. "I know." "No, Lord Stark. You know that he suspects. You do not know what it means that he knows. He will not run. He will not beg. He will not let you choose the hour of revelation. I do not fear Lord Tywin. You should. Everyone with sense does." Ned stepped closer. "And do you fear him?" Cersei's face hardened into beauty again. "Every child fears his father until he learns to become worse." She left him beneath the heart tree. By morning, Robert wanted to hunt. Robert Baratheon went to his death laughing. He did not know it, of course. Men rarely do. They walk into endings as they walk into feasts, certain the world exists to receive them. Robert rode from King's Landing before the sun had burned the mist from the fields, massive and loud in the saddle, cursing the heat, praising the hounds, calling for wine before the city walls had vanished behind them. His laughter rolled through the royal party and set nervous men at ease, because a laughing king seemed less dangerous than a thinking one. Ned rode beside him for the first miles, troubled by truths he had not yet spoken. He had resolved to tell Robert after the hunt. He disliked the delay but feared the setting. A king surrounded by spears, wine, and Lannister cousins was not a king to whom one handed a truth soaked in blood. He would wait until they returned. He would send for Renly, perhaps Barristan, perhaps the council. He would make it formal. He would make it lawful. He told himself this because honor sometimes needed an excuse to survive prudence. "You look like a man riding to his own hanging," Robert boomed. "Perhaps I dislike hunting. You used to like it well enough." "I liked the North," Robert laughed. "Hey, everything south of the neck offends you. The sun shines wrong. The wine is too sweet. The women talk too much. Gods, Ned, you were born old. And you were born thirsty." "That I was." Robert reached back, and Lancel Lannister hurried forward with a wineskin. The boy was thin, pale, anxious, with the look of someone trying to grow into armor by wishing at it. Robert snatched the skin and drank deeply. "There, better king already." Ned watched Lancel lower his eyes. Something in him tightened. "How much has he had?" Ned asked. Robert wiped his mouth. "Not enough," Lancel stammered. "His grace has only—" "His grace can answer for himself," Robert barked, then laughed again and clapped the boy so hard on the shoulder he nearly fell from his horse. "Poor cousin. The queen sends me children to pour my wine now. She thinks he'll drink less if the cupbearer trembles." Barristan Selmy rode behind them, white cloak moving softly in the morning air. His face had the still dignity of an old sword kept bright. Ned glanced at him, but Barristan's eyes were on the king, troubled and loyal and powerless in the way honorable men became powerless when service replaced judgment. The hunt went deep into the Kingswood. The day grew hot. Men sweated beneath leather and mail. Hounds bayed through the green gloom. Robert drank. Lancel was always there when the king's hand reached back, offering wine stronger than it ought to have been. Sweeter too, spiced heavily enough to hide the bite beneath. Ned noticed. He noticed the way Lancel looked each time Robert drank, as if waiting for a blow that had not yet fallen. At noon, Renly Baratheon found them beneath the shade of an oak, dressed too finely for rough country and smiling as if the forest had been arranged for his amusement. "Brother," Renly said, "you are killing the deer with your singing before we reach them." Robert roared. "Better than killing them with perfume." Renly touched his embroidered sleeve. "The deer should die knowing civilization exists." Robert laughed again, but Ned saw Renly's eyes move to the wineskin, then to Lancel, then briefly to him. Renly was not a fool. He often behaved like one because clever men underestimated laughter. Later, when Robert rode ahead after fresh tracks, Renly guided his horse near Ned's. "The king drinks heavily," Renly said lightly. "The king often drinks heavily. Today more than often." Ned looked at him. "Say what you mean." Renly smiled at the trees. "In King's Landing? Never." Before Ned could answer, the horns sounded. They had found the boar near a stream choked with ferns. It was monstrous, black-bristled, scarred, mean with age. Its tusks yellow as old bone. It burst from cover with a scream that set horses rearing and men shouting. Robert saw it and became young again in an instant. His face lit with savage joy. He seized his spear, kicked his horse forward and bellowed for the others to stand aside. Ned shouted his name. Robert did not hear, or would not. The boar crashed through brush. Robert followed on horseback where a smaller man would have checked. Branches tore at him. The horse stumbled near the stream. Robert half fell, laughed, landed in mud, and rose with spear in hand. "Mine!" he roared. The boar charged. For a moment, time narrowed to green leaves, black hide, flashing tusks. Robert's great body braced in the mud. He drove the spear down with all the strength that had shattered Rhaegar Targaryen at the trident. The point struck. The shaft bent. The boar screamed and twisted, and Robert, drunker than strength could forgive, moved a heartbeat too slow. The tusk opened him from groin to belly. Men shouted. Barristan ran. Ned was already moving, sword drawn though it was useless. Robert killed the boar with his dagger while it gored him, stabbing again and again, roaring curses until the beast collapsed atop its own blood. Then the king fell. He did not die there. Robert was too stubborn for that. They carried him back to camp on cloaks, his blood soaking through cloth and leather, his face gray beneath the sweat. He joked once, weakly, that the boar had fought better than most Targaryens. No one laughed. Lancel vomited behind a tree. Ned saw. By the time they returned to King's Landing, Robert smelled of milk, of the poppy, wine, and death. Pycelle fussed. Barristan stood near the door like a man guarding a gate already breached. Cersei came in dressed in mourning colors too soon, though not so soon that anyone could accuse her. Joffrey entered behind her, pale and excited, not frightened enough. Renly came, then left quietly. Varys wept soft, false tears. Littlefinger looked thoughtful. Robert asked for Ned. The chamber cleared reluctantly. Cersei remained until Robert cursed her out, calling her woman, wife, and worse. She looked at Ned as she passed. There was no triumph in her face, only calculation under strain. When they were alone but for Barristan and Pycelle, Robert beckoned Ned close. "Bad business," Robert muttered. "Yes. Damn boar." His breath rattled. "Did I get him?" "You did." "Good." Robert closed his eyes. "Wine?" "No," Ned said. Robert opened one eye and almost smiled. "Hand of the king already?" Ned's throat tightened. "You must name your will. Gods, listen to you." But Robert gestured weakly. "Parchment then. Ink. Yo. Before the damned maester starts chanting. Ma. Penye. Di. Bao. Bentishe. Chur." Pycelle shuffled forward. Ned took the writing board himself. Robert dictated with effort. He named Eddard Stark Protector of the Realm, to rule as regent until his son Joffrey came of age. Ned's hand paused before the word son. He wrote rightful heir instead. Robert did not notice. When it was done, the king sank back, exhausted. There it was, the moment. The truth stood in Ned's mouth like iron. He could still speak. Robert was dying, yes, but not dead. He could tell him that Joffrey was not his. He could tell him that Cersei had betrayed him, that the children bore Jaime's blood, that Stannis was heir. He could give Robert truth at the end. And what would Robert do with it? He would die raging. He would command murders from his deathbed. He would make Ned swear blood against children. He would spend his final breaths not on repentance, not on peace, but on vengeance. Ned looked at his friend. He saw not the king, but the boy from the Vale, huge and laughing, certain no grief could catch him. He saw the man at the trident hammer rising. He saw the husband who had failed, the father who had not seen, the king who had let the realm rot because wine was easier than rule. Robert's eyes opened. "Ned? I am here." Was she beautiful? Ned knew who he meant. After all these years, it still came back to Lyanna. "Yes," Ned said. Robert's eyes filled. "I killed him." "Yes." "Didn't bring her back." "No." Robert breathed. The sound was terrible. "Promise me," he whispered. Ned froze. For a moment he was not in King's Landing, but in a tower that smelled of blood and roses, holding his sister's hand while fever took her and dawn came too late. "Promise me, Ned." "What?" he asked, though dread had already found him. "Look after them," Robert said. "My children, even Joff, little shit." A ghost of a laugh. "Don't let Cersei make him worse." Ned closed his eyes briefly. "I promise," he said. It was mercy. It was cowardice. It was both, and the gods would have to judge which weighed more. Robert slept. Ned left the chamber carrying the will. In the corridor, Renly waited. "You have it?" Renly asked. "Yes." "Then we must act tonight." Ned looked at him. Renly's youth had fallen away. In its place was a Lord of Storm's End, ambitious, and afraid. Joffrey will move the moment Robert dies. Cersei will move before that if she can. I have 100 swords. You have the king's word. We take the children into custody. Secure the queen. Call the council at dawn. They are children. They are pieces on a board. They are children, Ned repeated. Renly's mouth tightened. You will lose, because you insist the world be better than it is. And what would you do after taking them? Rule until matters settle. For yourself? Renly smiled sadly. Everyone rules for himself, Lord Stark. Some simply call it duty. Ned refused him. By dawn, Renly had fled the city. By noon, Robert was dead. The bells began to ring. In the Tower of the Hand, Ned sealed letters to Stannis, to Dragonstone, to Winterfell. He summoned Littlefinger and placed trust where distrust had warned him not to. He counted gold cloaks as if men bought once could not be bought twice. He prepared to present Robert's will to the council and remove Joffrey lawfully. He did not know that Tywin's orders had arrived before the bells. He did not know that Janos Slynt had already taken Lannister gold. He did not know that Cersei had read his mercy correctly, not as weakness only, but as a schedule. In the throne room, Joffrey mounted the steps beneath the swords of dead kings. He wore black and gold, a crown too large in meaning if not in fit. Cersei stood beside him. Jaime stood below in white. The council gathered. The air smelled of incense, sweat, and metal. Ned presented the will. Cersei tore it in half. "Protector of the realm," she said. "Is this meant to shield us from treason, Lord Stark, or excuse your own?" Ned turned to the gold cloaks. They lowered their spears. For one mad heartbeat, he thought they had obeyed him. Then they killed his men. Steel sounded different in the throne room. On a battlefield, steel became part of the storm. Shouting, mud, hooves, screams, horns, the wet labor of men killing men beneath an open sky. In the throne room, every clash rang against stone and swords and the high cold walls, clear as a bell, obscene as laughter at a funeral. Jory Castle died first. He had time to turn, time to understand betrayal, time to put himself between Ned and the nearest gold cloak. A spear took him under the ribs. He killed the man who held it before falling. His blood spread black across the polished floor. "Jory!" Ned shouted. He drew ice halfway before 3 spears leveled at his chest and a 4th pressed against his back. More gold cloaks poured from the side doors. His remaining men fought because they were Northmen, and because surrender came poorly to those who had crossed half the realm trusting their lord. They died quickly. Too quickly. King's Landing had swallowed better men than the ones who killed them, and the room did not care. Sansa screamed. The sound cut through Ned more deeply than any spear. She stood near the queen, pale as milk, auburn hair trembling around her face. She had been brought to court for ceremony, for betrothal, for songs. Now she watched Winterfell men bleed beneath the Iron Throne while her prince looked down with bright interest. Arya was not there. That thought came like breath. Arya was not there. Thank the gods. Arya was not there. Joffrey rose from the throne. "Kill him too." "No," Cersei said. The word cracked like a whip. Joffrey turned, offended. "He's a traitor. He is worth more alive. I am king, and kings listen to counsel." His face twisted. For a moment Ned saw the future. A boy with absolute power and no discipline, cruelty fed by fear, vanity armed by law. This was not Robert's son. Not in blood, not in spirit. Robert had been brutal, selfish, careless. But there had been warmth in him once, a rough generosity, a capacity for shame when sober enough to feel it. Joffrey had none. He had inherited Cersei's pride and Jaime's beauty, but not even the better parts of either. Littlefinger stood near the council seats, dagger sheathed, smile mild. "I did warn you not to trust me," he said. Ned looked at him with a disgust too complete for words. "Take him," Cersei commanded. The spears drove Ned forward. Jaime had not moved. That was what Ned saw as they dragged him from the hall. Jaime Lannister standing below the throne, white cloak untouched, green eyes fixed not on Ned but on the dead men at his feet. He wore the face of the Kingslayer, careless and shining, but his sword hand was clenched. They threw Ned into a black cell. There was no honor in darkness. No north, no south, no lordship, no office, no clean line between right and wrong. There was only stone, damp, hunger, and the slow work of pain. His injured leg throbbed until thought blurred. Time passed without shape. Men came sometimes. Varys came once in the dark, smelling of powder and secrets, speaking of mercy and daughters. Ned listened because he had no choice, and because Sansa was still in Cersei's hands. "Your son has called the banners," Varys whispered. Robb died. The name struck light into the dark and fear after it. Robb was 15. 15 and Lord in Winterfell, with gray eyes too serious for his young face, trying always to be older because duty had demanded it. Robb would march. Of course he would. Catelyn would counsel him. The bannermen would gather. Great Jon Umber would roar for war. The North would come south for him, and Tywin Lannister would be waiting. "Your daughter Sansa pleads for your life," Varys continued. "The younger girl has vanished." Ned closed his eyes. "Arya, where?" "If I knew, my lord, I would either tell you or sell the knowing. At present, I can do neither." "Nay. What does Cersei want?" "Peace, obedience, a confession, a lie, a useful lie. Those are the only kind that prosper here." Ned laughed once, bitterly, and pain seized his chest. "You counsel dishonor. I counsel survival. Honor has already brought you here." When Varys left, the darkness returned heavier than before. Above, the city rearranged itself around a boy king. Cersei moved swiftly, but this time she moved with her father's hand behind hers. Ravens went west and south. Royal proclamations named Ned Stark a traitor who had conspired with Stannis Baratheon to steal the throne from Robert's trueborn son. The wording was Tywin's. Cersei would have called Ned jealous, treacherous, grasping. Tywin understood that treason needed architecture. Stannis was placed inside the accusation because Stannis had already fled and could not be allowed to stand apart as lawful alternative. Pycelle swore before the small council that Lord Arryn had died naturally. Janos Slint was raised high and paid higher. Gold cloaks were doubled around the Red Keep. Sansa was kept close, dressed gently, spoken to sweetly, and guarded as if she carried a plague. Jaime remained in the capital under orders he did not like and could not ignore. He went once to the black cells. Ned heard the footsteps before he saw the torch. He sat against the wall, filthy, bearded, feverish from the leg wound. The light hurt his eyes. When Jaime appeared beyond the bars, Ned thought for a moment that fever had shaped him out of memory. The throne room, the blood, Aerys dead, a golden knight smiling with a sword across his knees. "Lord Stark," Jaime said. "Come to boast. No, come to kill me. If I had, you would not have heard the footsteps." Ned looked away. "Then why?" Jaime did not answer quickly. The torchlight moved over his face, making shadows under cheekbones too fine for the place. He looked wrong in the black cells, too bright, like a coin dropped into mud. "My father says you are to live," Jaime said. "Your father rules then." "My father always rules whatever room men pretend belongs to someone else." "And you obey?" A flash of irritation. "More often, lately." Ned studied him. "Do you know why Jon Arryn died?" Jaime's face closed. "There it is," Ned said. "You should have gone home. I should have told Robert sooner. Robert would have killed them." Ned leaned his head back against the wall. "Yes." Jaime's voice changed. "They are children. So I told myself. They are. And what are you?" The question struck. Jaime looked down the corridor, where darkness swallowed both ends. "A bad story," he said at last. Ned almost laughed. "That is not confession." No, confession is for men who expect forgiveness. Do you? Jaime looked back at him. From you? No. From the gods. I killed a king in a room full of wildfire and let better men call me Oathbreaker for half my life. The gods may take a number. Ned frowned despite himself. Something in the words did not fit the tale he had carried for years. Wildfire. He knew pieces of Aerys' madness, enough to understand danger had threatened the city, but Jaime had never explained. No one had. Pride had stood where truth might have stood. Why come here? Ned asked again. Jaime gripped the torch bracket. His knuckles widened. Because they want you to confess. Because your daughter believes you will live if you do. Because my sister believes that once you kneel, the North will quiet. His mouth tightened. Because my father knows better. Ned's eyes sharpened. He will not kill you, Jaime said. Not publicly. Not if he can help it. He thinks dead Starks are banners, living Starks are chains. And you? I think men in chains sometimes become banners anyway. For a moment, they looked at each other not as friends, never that, but as men trapped inside choices already made. If you had honor, Ned said, you would tell the truth. Jaime smiled faintly. If I had honor, I would be dead. So would half the city. Convenient. Yes, Jaime said. It has been. He turned to leave. Sir Jaime. He stopped. My daughters. Jaime did not look back. I know. It was not enough. It was something. In King's Landing, something was often all the gods allowed. The day of confession came beneath a hard blue sky. The steps of the Great Sept filled with the city's hunger. People crowded shoulder to shoulder, craning for spectacle. The faith stood in solemn rows. Gold cloaks lined the square. Cersei arrived with Joffrey, Sansa beside her in pale blue, face hollow from weeping. Sandor Clegane loomed near the prince. Ser Meryn, Ser Boros, and the rest of the White Cloaks held their places. Tywin had arrived from the west 3 days before. He did not stand beside the throne. He stood below, near enough to intervene, and far enough to appear merely the king's grandfather. Ned saw him through the haze of pain and sunlight. Tall, severe, gold-shot beard trimmed close, eyes pale and pitiless. The man looked at Ned not with hatred but with assessment. That was worse. Hatred might err. Calculation rarely did. Ned was brought forward. The crowd roared insults. Traitor. Wolf. Usurper. Some threw dung. Some prayed. Sansa sobbed silently. Ned found her face and held it with his eyes. For her, then. For Arya, wherever she was. For Robb, to buy him time. For the promise he had given a dying friend, though the promise had become a noose around truth. He confessed. The words tasted like ash. He named himself false, ambitious, misled by grief and envy. He affirmed Joffrey as Robert's true-born heir. He asked mercy of the king and forgiveness of the queen. Each lie stripped something from him. But he spoke them clearly because a mumbled lie would not save Sansa. When he finished, the High Septon intoned mercy. Cersei's shoulders eased. Joffrey rose. My mother bids me let Lord Eddard take the black, he said. The crowd quieted, sensing turn. Sansa's hands flew to her mouth. Tywin took one step forward. Joffrey smiled. But I am king. Treason must never go unpunished. Cersei whispered sharply, Joffrey. The boy did not look at her. Ser Ilyn, bring me his head. The world stopped. Then Tywin moved. He did not shout. He did not plead. He climbed the steps to the king with the controlled fury of a lion crossing a cage too small for it. Joffrey flinched despite himself when Tywin bent and spoke into his ear. No one in the crowd heard the words, but Ned saw the boy's face change from triumph to resentment to fear. Ser Ilyn Payne had taken 2 steps forward. He stopped. Cersei had gone white. Joffrey's mouth worked. For one terrible moment, Ned thought pride would carry him past fear. Then the boy spat to the side and sank back. My grandfather counsels mercy, Joffrey said, voice shaking with rage. The traitor will take the black. Let all men see that I am just. The crowd did not know whether to cheer or howl. It did both. Ned's knees nearly failed. Sansa collapsed. Tywin looked down at Ned Stark, and in his eyes there was no mercy at all. Only knowledge. Only warning. You live because I have use for you. Ned understood. That night, ravens flew north with news that Lord Eddard Stark would be sent to the wall. But ravens do not carry grief gently. By the time the message reached Robb Stark, his banners were already gathering. Robb Stark read the letter 3 times before the boy in him died. The first time, he read as a son. His eyes ran too quickly, stumbling over the formal language, searching only for his father's name, for life or death, for the shape of hope. Lord Eddard Stark, having confessed his treason, was to be spared by the mercy of King Joffrey and sent to the wall, there to take the black and live out his days in service. Sansa remained at court, beloved betrothed of the king. Arya was not mentioned. The second time Robb read as Lord of Winterfell, he noted the seal, the phrasing, the order of names, the deliberate insult of calling his father, confessed traitor before calling him spared. He saw Tywin Lannister's hand in the construction. Mercy presented as domination. A life offered as leash. The third time, he read as something he had not yet chosen to become. When he looked up, the hall was silent. Catelyn stood near the high table. She had returned from the south, worn thin by fear, carrying news of Tyrion Lannister's innocence in one matter, and guilt hanging everywhere else like smoke. Her face did not break when Robb met her eyes. That was her gift and her cruelty. She could hold herself together so others might fall apart more safely. Your father lives, she said. Hey. The great Jon slammed a fist onto the table hard enough to make cups jump. Lives in chains. Lives because lion cubs permit it. Are we to thank them for leaving Lord Eddard his head? Murmurs rose. Anger, grief, confusion. Men had come prepared to march for rescue, perhaps vengeance. The letter changed the shape of both. A dead Ned Stark would have made the road simple. Living, he became hostage, oath, burden, hope. Roose Bolton spoke softly from beneath pale eyes. If Lord Eddard is sent to the wall, the king may claim the matter settled. The king is a bastard boy sitting on stolen swords, Great Jon growled. Catelyn's gaze sharpened. Speak carefully. Why? Will Joffrey hear me from here? Words grow wings in halls full of men. Robb placed the letter on the table. Grey Wind stood beside him, yellow eyes fixed on the lords as if weighing which might turn. The direwolf had grown swiftly, too swiftly, his presence turning unease into something older. Men who might scoff at a boy lord did not scoff as easily with a wolf at his hand. We called the banners to defend my father and my sisters, Robb said. His voice sounded strange to him, steadier than he felt, deeper perhaps because everyone expected depth and he had no choice but to provide it. That has not changed. Rickard Karstark leaned forward. If Lord Eddard takes the black, he is lost to us by law. By Lannister law, Grey Jon said. By the vows of the Night's Watch, Roose murmured. Robb looked at him. If he reaches the wall. The words altered the hall. Catelyn closed her eyes briefly. She had thought it too then. Of course she had. The road from King's Landing to the wall was long. Prisoners could be taken. Escorts could be intercepted. A living hostage could be rescued. A dead one only mourned. Theon Greyjoy smiled from the edge of the gathering, quick and bright. Give me 30 men and a fast ship. I'll have him out of whatever royal litter they stuff him in before the lions know he's missing. You would sail up the Blackwater into King's Landing? Catelyn asked. I did say fast ship. You would die quickly. Theon's smile faltered. Then perhaps not that plan. Robb almost smiled, then hated himself for it. Maester Luwin cleared his throat. My lords, there is also the question of Lord Stannis. He has made no public declaration yet. But rumors from the south suggest he disputes Joffrey's claim. Stannis Baratheon, Greyjohn said, making the name sound like something stuck in his teeth. Another Southron king. If Joffrey is illegitimate, Lewin continued gently, then by law Stannis is Robert's heir. The hall erupted. Some shouted that the North owed no man who burned no god's wood and knew no winter. Others argued law mattered, if only because law gave the Lannisters no shelter. Riverland envoys spoke of Lord Hoster's illness, of Edmure raising men, of Lannister forces not yet unleashed but surely coming. Names flew through smoke. Tywin, Jaime, Cersei, Stannis, Renly. Robb listened. It was hard not to be dragged by the loudest voice. The Great Jon made war sound like a feast. Roose made caution sound like a grave. Theon made daring sound easy. His mother made every path sound as dangerous as it was. At last, Robb raised a hand. The hall quieted. Not fully, then enough. We march south, he said. Catelyn's face changed, though she had known. We march for my father, for my sisters, and for the honor of our house. We do not name a king today. Not Joffrey, not Stannis, not Renly. We are not sellswords to be hired by whichever stag bellows loudest. Greyjohn grinned. And if they stand in our way, then they are in our way. The grin widened. There's the wolf. Robb looked down at the letter again. His father's life had been turned into a bargaining chip. His sisters were still among enemies. Arya was missing. The Lannisters had lied before the realm and called it mercy. He placed his hand on Grey Wind's head. We leave at first light. In the days that followed, Winterfell became a place of iron, leather, wool, and farewell. Smiths worked until sparks lit their arms. Women packed salted meat, hard bread, bandages. Boys too young to shave begged to ride and were sent home or hidden in wagons by older brothers. Horses stamped in the yard. Banners arrived through rain and mist. Umbra Giant, Karstark Sunburst, Mormont Bear, Hornwood Moose, Glover Fist, Tall Heart Trees, Bolton Flayed Man. Robb learned that command was 1,000 small griefs before it was one great glory. He had to tell Bran. His brother lay in bed, unable to ride, face pale with fury he could not spend. Rickon sat on the floor nearby, clutching a wooden wolf and glaring at everyone. You're leaving too, Bran said. Yes, everyone leaves. Robb sat beside him. I don't want to, but you are. Father needs us. I need you. The words struck harder than Robb expected. Bran looked away at once, ashamed of having said them. He had grown older since the fall that had not happened in this world, but childhood was still close enough to wound openly. In this telling, Bran had not been broken by Jaime's hand. He could walk, climb, run, yet fear had still found him. Father gone, mother gone, and return changed. Sisters trapped, Robb armoring himself into something distant. Robb reached for him. Bran resisted, then allowed the embrace. You'll be Lord of Winterfell while I'm gone, Robb said. Bran pulled back. May? With Maester Lewin, Ser Roderick. Mother, if she remains. Catelyn, standing in the doorway, said, I ride with you. Robb turned. Mother, I ride with you. There was no appeal in her voice. No softness. Only decision. Robb wanted to protest, to keep some part of his family safe behind stone, but he knew why she had to come. Ned was her husband, Sansa and Arya her daughters, and Robb, though he wore mail now and gave orders men obeyed, was still her son. Rickon began to cry when he understood. That was the hardest farewell. At Moat Cailin, the North gathered into something larger than loyalty. It became a moving country, rough and cold and dangerous. Robb learned the taste of command in rainwater and sleeplessness. He learned that men praised boldness before asking who would feed the horses. He learned that ravens rarely brought clean news. From the south came word that Tywin Lannister had left Casterly Rock with a host, but had not ravaged the Riverlands as expected. Instead, he moved with discipline toward Harrenhal. securing roads, bridges, and supply lines. He was not reacting. He was preparing. "That worries me," Catelyn said in Robb's tent one night. "Because he does not act like a man surprised. Because he acts like a man who knows what every board piece is worth." Robb studied the map. He wants father alive. For now. Then we have time. Do not confuse borrowed time with gifted time. Robb looked up. "You sound like him. Your father?" "Lord Tywin." Catelyn recoiled slightly. Robb regretted it at once. "I did not mean—" "Yes," she said quietly. "You did." Silence sat between them. Then she touched his hair, a gesture so familiar and gentle that it nearly unmanned him. "Learn from enemies where you must. Just do not become them where you need not." South of the neck, the war did not ignite in the way singers would later prefer. There was no sudden slaughter of Ned Stark to crown Robb in grief. No Jaime Lannister captured in the Whispering Wood because Tyrion had never been taken, and Tywin had never unleashed Gregor Clegane in blind reprisal. The Riverlands still trembled, but the first blows were cautious, probing, cruel in smaller ways. Villages near disputed roads vanished into smoke. Scouts disappeared. Lords declared, hesitated, reversed, declared again. Ravens flew until Maester's hands ached. At River Run, Edmure Tully welcomed Robb with relief too eager to hide embarrassment. Lord Hoster lay dying above, muttering names from older wars. The Blackfish embraced Catelyn and measured Robb with eyes sharp as winter water. "You look like your father," Brynden said. "So I'm told." "That is not always enough." Robb nodded. "No." The Blackfish smiled faintly. "Good. You heard the warning, not the compliment." "Nida." "In council," the argument returned. "Declare for Stannis. Treat with Renly, bargain for Ned. Strike Tywin, avoid Tywin, take Jaime. Take Harrenhal, hold River Run, raid the west." Every road had teeth. Robb chose the road no one expected from a boy trying to save his father. He sent envoys to Stannis Baratheon. Not fealty. Not yet. A question. If Joffrey is false, prove it. If you are rightful king, name what justice you offer. Eddard Stark, Sansa Stark, Arya Stark, and the North. Catelyn approved because it bought legitimacy. Greyjohn complained because it bought delay. Roose approved because delay often hid knives. Theon said Stannis sounded dull enough to be legal. The reply came from Dragonstone in a hand hard enough to gouge the parchment. Joffrey, Myrcella, and Tommen are born of incest between Cersei Lannister and Jaime Lannister. By law and blood, I am Robert's heir. Eddard Stark declared the truth and was betrayed for it. Bend the knee, and I will restore him to honor, return his daughters, and punish treason. Robb read it before the lords. The hall at River Run fell silent. There it was. The truth. The truth made public at last. Not rumor. Not whisper. A royal accusation. Greyjohn spat. "So we trade one Southron king for another." Robb looked at the map. King's Landing, Dragonstone, Harrenhal, River Run, Winterfell far behind. "No," he said slowly. "We trade a lie for a law, then decide what law is worth." Catelyn watched him with pride and fear intertwined. The war had found its name. Dragonstone did not welcome men. It endured them. The castle rose black from the sea like the memory of old fire. Its towers twisted into dragons, its walls slick with salt, its halls smelling of smoke long after the last hearth had died. Wind moved through it with a voice almost human, and waves struck the cliffs below as if the sea had sworn to bring the fortress down one patient blow at a time. Targaryens had made it a seat of exile and return. Stannis Baratheon had made it a seat of grievance. He stood in the chamber of the painted table with both hands braced upon Westeros. The map beneath him was old and magnificent, carved in the shape of the realm. Mountains rising beneath his fingers, rivers winding like veins, castles marked where kings and fools had bled for centuries. King's Landing lay near his right hand, Storm's End beneath his wrist. Winterfell far away in the north, remote and stubborn. Casterly Rock in the west, rich and proud and rotten. Davos Seaworth stood quietly nearby. He had learned long ago that Stannis did not require agreement so much as honest resistance when resistance was earned. Melisandre stood near the brazier, red silk moving in the heat, ruby at her throat pulsing with inner light. She looked not at the map but at Stannis, as if he were the only country that mattered. "The letters are ready, Your Grace," Maester Cresson said. He was older than the castle seemed, stooped and sad-eyed, his maester's chain heavy against a neck too thin for it. He had served Stannis since boyhood and loved him with the helpless devotion of men who know love will not soften what they love. "Read them," Stannis said. Cresson did. His voice shook only once, when he named the sin. "Joffrey, Myrcella, and Tommen are not of King Robert's blood, but born of the incestuous union of Queen Cersei and Sir Jaime of the Kingsguard. By right of birth, law, and the will of the gods, I, Stannis of House Baratheon, Lord of Dragonstone, claim the Iron Throne as Robert's true heir." When he finished, only the sea answered. Davos looked at the carved Blackwater. "Once sent, there's no recalling them. I do not send letters to recall them. No, Your Grace. You counsel silence? I counsel knowing what the words will cost." Stannis looked up. "Truth does not become false because men dislike its price." "No, but men don't always buy truth when lies are cheaper." Melisandre smiled. "The night is full of cheap things, Sir Davos. Shadows, whispers, little kings with paper crowns. Yet dawn comes." Cresson frowned. "My lady, perhaps matters of succession require less poetry and more prudence. Prudence kept the true king on a cold island while abomination sat the throne." "Enough," Stannis said. They fell silent. He looked again at the letters. For years he had endured slights because law demanded endurance. Robert had given Storm's End to Renly, though Stannis had held it starving through siege. Robert had made Jon Arryn hand, and that had been wise, so Stannis bore it. Robert had laughed, drunk, whored, wasted, and still Stannis had served because younger brothers served elder brothers, and kings were kings even when they were fools. But this was different. This was not insult. It was theft from the realm itself. Cersei's children were not merely bastards. They were proof that law could be painted gold and sold to cheering idiots. "Ned Stark knows," Stannis said. Davos lifted his eyes. "You're certain?" "He accused the queen and was arrested. He confessed to save his daughters." "That sounds like a father." "It sounds like weakness." "It may be both." Stannis' jaw tightened. "Honor that bends becomes something else." "Hey," Davos said. "Sometimes mercy." Stannis disliked that. He disliked many things, Davos said, which was one reason he kept him close. "Ned Stark should have come to me when Jon Arryn died," Stannis said. "Would you have trusted him?" "No." "Then perhaps he knew that." The point was fair. Stannis hated fair points made against him. He turned to the maester. "Send them." Cresson hesitated. "To every great lord. To every lord with a rookery. To the faith. To the citadel. To the Night's Watch. To every man who must choose between law and treason." "And Renly?" Davos asked. Stannis' mouth hardened. "Especially Renly." Renly's reply came not in writing first, but in rumor. Storm's End declared for him. Highgarden smiled upon him. Lords who found Stannis too cold discovered suddenly that Robert's youngest brother had warmth enough for loyalty. Renly wore green and gold, feasted beneath silk, and let men call him king because men liked the sound of it more from his mouth. When the letter finally arrived, it was graceful, affectionate, and treasonous. "Brother," Renly wrote, "I grieve that grief and suspicion have led you into severity. The realm requires healing, not accusation. Come to me, and all may yet be settled between us as blood demands." Stannis crushed the parchment. "Blood demands that he kneel." Davos, who had smuggled onions through siege lines and knew what hunger made of pride, said, "He has the Storm Lords. I am Lord of Dragonstone. He has the reach. I have right. He has more swords." Stannis glared. "You think swords decide kingship? I think swords decide whether kings live long enough to argue." Melisandre moved closer to the table. "Your grace has more than swords." Cressen's face tightened. "Here it comes." The Red Woman ignored him. Her eyes reflected flame, red upon red, beautiful and terrible. "The Lord of Light shows me a crown of fire. Your brother's host is summer grass, bright, plentiful, and dry. I need ships, men, coin," Stannis said. "Not riddles. You need faith. I need obedience. Faith is obedience to truth unseen." Stannis almost dismissed her. Yet, he did not. That troubled Davos more than open devotion would have. Stannis was not a man easily seduced by comfort, beauty, or flattery. Melisandre offered none of those in ordinary measure. She offered certainty. To a man made of law and grievance, certainty was sweeter than wine. The letters went out. The realm answered as realms do, unevenly, selfishly, loudly. Some lords burned the letters unread and sent ashes to King's Landing. Some hid them and waited. Some read them aloud in halls that fell silent afterward. In the north, the accusation confirmed what Robb Stark already feared. In the Riverlands, it hardened anger. In the Vale, Lysa Arryn locked her gates and pretended the world ended at her mountains. Dorne watched. The Iron Islands sniffed opportunity like blood on tidewater. In King's Landing, Joffrey raged. Cersei demanded every copy found and destroyed, which made the city repeat the contents twice as eagerly. Men who had never cared for lineage now argued hair color over cups of sour wine. Gold cloaks beat 3 tavern singers for rhyming stag with crag. By the next morning, 6 new versions of the song existed. Tywin arrived before the rumors could become policy. He entered the small council chamber in riding clothes, dust still on his boots, and took the king's seat without asking Joffrey's permission. Joffrey had been pacing, red-faced, Sir Meryn behind him, Cersei at the window. Tyrion absent in this telling because he had never been kidnapped and thus had not yet been thrust into the center of the game. Pycelle bent lower than age required. Littlefinger smiled. Varys looked sad in a way that meant he was entertained. "You cannot sit there," Joffrey snapped. Tywin looked at him. The room remembered itself. Joffrey flushed and looked away first. "Lord Stannis has committed treason," Cersei said. "Yes," Tywin replied. "He has also committed strategy. He lies. He accuses. Whether men call it lie or truth will depend on who feeds them, pays them, frightens them, and wins battles before they must decide." Joffrey struck the table. "I want his head. You may have it after someone else has removed it from his body. I am king. You are a boy with enemies." Cersei inhaled sharply. "Father," Tywin did not look at her. "Summon the Tyrells." Littlefinger's eyes brightened. An inspired thought. "I do not require your approval." "No, my lord. Only your coin." Tywin ignored him. "Renly has the reach by charm, not right? If Renly falls, Highgarden will need a crown to justify its ambitions. We will provide one." Cersei understood first. "Margaery. Joffrey will wed her." "No." The word came from Cersei and Joffrey together. Tywin's gaze moved between them. "You confuse preference with relevance. The capital needs food. The throne needs swords. The realm needs spectacle. A beautiful queen from a fertile house solves more problems than your objections create." "I am already betrothed," Joffrey said, "to Sansa Stark. Sansa Stark is a hostage. She is mine." "She is a hostage," Tywin repeated. Joffrey's mouth twisted with the dangerous petulance that made even his guards wary. I could marry them both. A king can do as he likes. Tywin's voice went soft. Aerys thought that. Jaime, standing near the door, looked at his father sharply. The name settled over the chamber like falling ash. Joffrey did not understand the full warning, but he understood enough to be frightened by what others understood. He sat. Tywin turned to Pycelle. Draft proclamations. Stannis is a jealous brother seeking power through slander. Emphasize Lord Arryn's fever, Robert's love for his son, and Lord Stark's confession. None. What? Varys murmured. The confession may be less persuasive now that Lord Stannis names Lord Stark as a man punished for truth. Then Lord Stark must reach the wall alive, Tywin said. Cersei looked at him. A living Ned Stark at the wall proves royal mercy, Tywin continued. A dead one proves fear. We will not give Stannis a martyr. Jaime lowered his eyes. Tywin saw. Tywin always saw. And if Stark speaks from the wall? Littlefinger asked. He will swear vows that forbid him from taking part in the wars of the realm. Varys smiled faintly. Vows. How comforting. Tywin's pale eyes moved to him. Vows do not bind all men, but reputation does. Eddard Stark's honor will serve us better than his silence if properly caged. Outside, bells rang for some minor septon's holy day. Inside, the realm was divided into uses. On Dragonstone, Stannis stood before the map as the first replies arrived. Fewer than he deserved. More than his enemies wished. Enough to begin, not enough to win. Davos found him there after midnight, still awake, still staring at King's Landing. Your Grace. What? You should sleep. I slept while Robert ruled. That was long enough. Davos folded his hands. The men are afraid. Good. Fear keeps men alert. They are afraid of more than war. Stannis glanced toward the brazier chamber where Melisandre's prayers rose in a language Davos did not understand. Fire frightens smugglers? Stannis asked. Fire frightens sailors. We know what it does when it gets loose. Stannis said nothing. Davos stepped closer. Ned Stark asked what justice you offer. I answered. You answered like a king. Might be you should answer like a man too. Stannis looked at him with irritation edged by curiosity. Davos pressed on. If his daughters are hostages, say you'll trade for them. If his son fights, say you'll not forget the North. Men don't follow law alone, Your Grace. They follow what law protects. For a long while, Stannis was silent. Then he took parchment. Lord Robb Stark, he wrote, your father acted where others feasted, lied, or trembled. His disgrace is false and shall be undone. His daughters are innocents held by traitors. Bend the knee, and I will treat with you not as rebel, but as loyal lord wronged by usurpers. He paused, then added, in smaller script, I do not forget service. It was not warmth. It was not charm. But, from Stannis, it was almost a hand extended. Davos sealed it himself. Melisandre watched from the doorway, red against darkness. The wolf may kneel, she said. Stannis looked back to the painted table. Wolves kneel poorly, then break the lions first. For once, Stannis did not correct her. The Tyrells came perfumed. Tywin smelled them before he saw them. Roses, fruit, oiled leather, summer wine, the costly freshness of men who wanted war to look like courtship. Their camp spread across the fields like a traveling garden, banners green as spring and gold as coin. Pavilions striped, musicians playing, knights laughing, cooks roasting enough meat to feed a lesser army. It was all theater, and effective theater at that. Men marched more willingly when told they were part of beauty rather than slaughter. Mace Tyrell entered Tywin's pavilion first, broad, bearded, smiling too much. He had the confidence of a man born to plenty, and the mind of a man who mistook plenty for proof of wisdom. My Lord Tywin, Mace boomed. A grim season, but surely great houses may yet bring order to it. Lord Mace. Terrible business with Stannis. Terrible. Accusing children. One hardly knows where honor has gone. One often knows. It is merely inconvenient to follow. Mace blinked, then laughed as if he had been complimented. Olenna Tyrell followed, small and ancient, and carried by force of will more than body. Her eyes were bright black thorns beneath the delicate arrangement of her veil. She looked around Tywin's pavilion, took in the plain furnishings, the guarded entrances, the absence of singers, and sighed. "Seven save us. It is like negotiating inside a strongbox." Tywin inclined his head. "Lady Olenna, Lord Tywin, you look as though you disapprove of sunlight." "I disapprove of waste. Sunlight is free. So are weeds." Her mouth twitched. "Good. I feared age had made you dull." Margaery Tyrell entered last. She was young, graceful, brown-haired, soft-eyed in the manner of girls trained to seem harmless. Tywin did not make that mistake. Her courtesy was too exact. Her glance moved too intelligently from banner to guard to map to wine. She smiled as if every man present mattered to her, which meant she had been well taught in the art of making lies feel like gifts. "Lord Tywin," she said, curtsying. "Lady Margaery, my grandmother has spoken of you often. Then I offer condolences." Olenna snorted. They sat. Wine was poured. Tywin did not drink until Olenna did, and Olenna noticed, which improved her opinion of him and worsened her mood. Mace began with condolences for Robert, praise for Joffrey's courage, concern for the realm, the tragedy of brothers divided, and the importance of unity. Tywin let him speak. Some men revealed weakness by silence. Mace revealed it by decorating every obvious point until it sagged. Olenna finally tapped her cane. "Mace, dear, if Lord Tywin wanted garlands, he would have invited a florist. He wants soldiers, grain, and my granddaughter." Mace flushed. "Mother, yes, you are very lordly. Have some wine." Tywin turned to her. "Your terms. Blunt. How refreshing." Olenna leaned back. "You want the Reach to abandon Renly. Renly has abandoned law. Law is a very fine horse when it carries the rider one favors. At present, many of our bannermen find Renly handsome, generous, and less likely than Stannis to make them feel guilty for enjoying supper. Renly has no claim. Claims are like chamber pots. Necessary, often ugly and emptied by servants after the important people are finished." Margaery's lips curved. Mace looked pained. Tywin allowed a thin silence. "Renly cannot win quickly enough to secure the realm. Stannis cannot win broadly enough to hold it. Joffrey holds the throne, the capital, the royal treasury, and Robert's name. With the Reach he holds food and numbers. That's stability." "That is arithmetic," Olenna said. "Stability requires people believing the sum. People believe victories. People also believe hair." There it was, placed lightly on the table like a sugared almond. Mace choked on wine. Margaery looked down. Tywin's face did not change. "Stannis' slander," he said, "will fade when answered by alliance." "Will it? I find slander tiresome only when it is uninteresting. This one has color. Gold, chiefly." Tywin looked at her for a long moment. Around them, guards stood still. Outside, the Tyrell camp laughed in the sun, unaware of how thin the canvas was between music and murder. "If you believed it," Tywin said, "you would not be here. If I knew it beyond doubt, perhaps not. If I suspected it, I would be exactly here, learning what the suspicion is worth." Margaery lifted her gaze then, and Tywin saw her clearly. Not pawn. Not yet queen. A girl being trained by an old woman who understood that marriage was war by other means. "What does Lady Margaery know?" Tywin asked. Olenna smiled. Enough not to interrupt. Margaery met his eyes. "I know the realm is bleeding, my lord. I know people become tired of fear. If his grace is seen as young, noble, generous, and guided by wise counselors, many will prefer that to more war over secrets they cannot prove." Tywin almost approved. Almost. And can you make Joffrey seem generous? I can make people wish to see him that way. Not the same thing. No, she said. But often enough. Mace brightened. Precisely. Margaery has always had the common touch. The people loved her with Renly. With Renly, Tywin said. The word did its work. Mace shifted. Olenna watched. Renly was the hinge. If he lived, the Tyrells would not abandon him without certainty of defeat. If he died, they would require a new path to the throne, and grief would become negotiation. Tywin knew what his spies had brought from the Stormlands. Stannis moving, Melisandre at his side, strange fires on Dragonstone, Renly confident beyond sense. Brothers did not always need armies to kill one another. Sometimes pride opened the tent flap. I will speak plainly, Tywin said. When Renly falls, come to us quickly. Mace sputtered. When? Olenna did not. Margaery's fingers tightened once around her cup. If, Tywin corrected without meaning it. If Renly falls, delay will reduce your price. Swift loyalty will increase it. Olenna laughed. You negotiate condolences before the corpse. I negotiate futures before fools waste them. And if Renly does not fall, then he meets Stannis and one brother weakens the other. After that, the crown still requires the reach. Olenna tilted her head. You think in traps. I think in outcomes. Same thing when done well. They spoke for 2 hours. The terms took shape beneath courtesy. Margaery would be queen. Loras would enter the Kingsguard, though Tywin disliked adding another Tyrell blade near the king, and Olenna insisted on it, because she disliked even more leaving Margaery among lions. Mace would be named to high office, grand enough to satisfy and vague enough to limit harm. Reach Grain would relieve King's Landing. Tyrell forces would join Lannister strength against Stannis or any rebel who refused royal peace. Sansa Stark's betrothal would be dissolved on grounds of her father's treason, though she would remain a ward until northern obedience could be assured. Hostage, Olenna said. Ward, Tywin replied. Hostage with clean sheets. A useful distinction to the hostage. Margaery said quietly, and Sansa. All eyes moved to her. Tywin answered, she will be treated according to her value. That is not reassuring. It is honest. Olenna watched her granddaughter with a flicker of approval quickly hidden. Then she looked back at Tywin. The girl is beloved in the songs already. Pretty northern maid trapped among enemies. Harm her and some singer will make a career of it. I do not take policy from singers. No, but small folk often do. They remember songs better than proclamations. Thou. Tywin conceded the point with silence. When the Tyrells left, Kevin entered from the adjoining chamber. They suspect, Kevin said. Of course. Will they move against us? Not while profit favors belief. And afterward? Tywin looked at the map. Afterward changes with every battle. Renly died before dawn 3 days later. The reports were confused, frightened, contradictory. A shadow, a demon, a trick. Brienne of Tarth accused. Catelyn Stark present. Renly's throat opened in his own tent while his armor stood empty nearby. Men fled to Stannis, to Highgarden, to nowhere. Camps dissolved. Oaths were revised before the corpse cooled. Tywin received the news without surprise. Mace Tyrell arrived wearing grief like an ill-fitted cloak. Olenna arrived wearing impatience. Margaery arrived in white and green, eyes red enough to be convincing and clear enough to be useful. Tragic, Tywin said. Olenna's gaze could have stripped paint. Spare us. Mace dabbed his eyes. Renly was dear to us. He was dear to many, Tywin said. That was his talent. Margaery looked at him. And now you become queen. The girl did not smile. That was wise. The march to King's Landing became a marriage procession armed for war. Ravens flew ahead bearing news of alliance. In the capital, hungry crowds began hearing that the roses would bring bread. Joffrey preened when told he would have a more beautiful bride and sulked when told he must be gracious about it. Cersei raged privately, not because she loved Sansa, but because she understood replacement. Jaime watched, silent and increasingly distant. Tyrion, summoned from the west at last because Tywin needed a sharper mind in the city, arrived to find every secret already older than he was allowed to know. "You might have told me," Tyrion said to his father on the night he reached the camp. Tywin looked up from letters. "I tell men what makes them useful. And am I useful? Occasionally. High praise. I shall have it engraved on a cup." Tywin handed him dispatches. "You will go ahead to King's Landing. Prepare the defenses. Stannis will come by sea. He has fewer men than he wants and more certainty than is healthy. Main, Amy, and Donterwa." Tyrion read quickly. "And the charming rumor that my royal nephews are my brother's bastards." Tywin's pen stopped. There it was, Tyrion's mind, crooked and swift, reaching the locked door by the shortest path. "Rumor," Tywin said. Tyrion looked at him. For once, mockery faded. "Is it?" Tywin's silence answered too much. Tyrion laughed softly, without pleasure. "Gods, Jaime, you golden fool. You will speak of this to no one. Who would I tell? The singers? I assume they already have better rhymes." "No." "Tyrion." The name came like a warning blade. Tyrion bowed from his mismatched height. "As my lord commands, I shall go save the city built on my family's abominations. Save the city because if it falls, you die in it." That too. When Tyrion left, Kevin said nothing. Tywin preferred him that way. The noose tightened around King's Landing, but it was a noose of many hands. Stannis from Dragonstone, Robb in the Riverlands, Renly dead, Tyrell's turning, Stark's uncertain, Lannister's lying, the city starving, Lannister's lying, the city starving, the king cruel, the queen afraid, Jaime restless, Tyrion clever, and Tywin at the center, pulling every cord he could reach. For the first time in years, he felt the shape of the realm as his to command. For the first time in years, he wondered if command would be enough. The night burned green. Tyrion Lannister stood atop the walls of King's Landing and watched the Blackwater become a road to hell. Wildfire moved across the river in sheets, bright and hungry, climbing ships as if flame had learned to leap with purpose. Men screamed in voices too high to belong to warriors. Sails vanished. Oars burned. Hulls split. The great chain had risen, trapping Stannis' fleet in the killing water. And for one glorious, terrible moment, Tyrion understood why mad kings mistook fire for power. Then the wind changed, and smoke struck the wall hard enough to make him cough like a dying dog. "More stones!" he shouted. No one heard, or everyone did. It hardly mattered. Battles were not commanded so much as survived loudly. Below, Stannis' men came on. That was the part no one had wanted to believe. Fire had swallowed ships. The river itself seemed cursed. But Stannis Baratheon had not built his claim on comfort, and his soldiers had either courage, terror of him, or no path back. They rode through wreckage, clung to broken masts, reached the mud beneath the walls, raised ladders, shields over their heads against arrows, stones, boiling pitch. They came on beneath banners scorched black at the edges, stags crowned in flame or plain black on gold, depending on which lord had reached the shore alive. Tyrion had prepared as well as any man could with too little time, too few trustworthy officers, and a king whose principal military instinct was ordering people killed for insufficient enthusiasm. He had stored wildfire, raised the chain, strengthened gates, paid sellswards, bullied gold cloaks, and placed clansmen where their savagery might be mistaken for strategy. Still, preparation looked fragile when men were climbing toward one's face with axes. "Hoffman!" someone roared from below. Tyrion leaned over the parapet. "You'll have to be more specific." A spear struck the stone near his head. He ducked. "Rude." Sir Mandon Moore moved nearby, pale and silent, white cloak ghostly in wildfire light. Tyrion disliked the man's emptiness. A man who wanted nothing could be sent to do anything. Behind them, the city shook with bells, prayers, and panic. In Maegor's holdfast, Cersei drank. She sat with the highborn women and children beneath thick walls, a cup in hand, green light flickering through narrow windows. Tommen pressed against her side, frightened and soft and warm. She stroked his hair with fingers that trembled only when no one watched. Sansa Stark sat nearby, hands folded, face pale but composed in a way that irritated Cersei more than weeping would have. "You pray very prettily," Cersei said. Sansa looked up. "I pray for the city." "How generous. Do you pray for the king?" "Yes, your grace." "Liar." Sansa lowered her eyes. Cersei smiled and drank again. Wine made fear slower. Not weaker, never weaker, but slower. She could think around it when wine softened the edges. Outside, Stannis came to kill them in the name of law. Law.de. Men loved that word when it placed them above others. Stannis would kill Joffrey, kill Tommen, perhaps spare Myrcella only to lock her in some silent place until she withered. He would call it justice. Ned Stark would have called it sorrowful duty. Her father would call it necessity if the names changed. Men made murder respectable by arranging better words around it. Tommen whimpered when the walls trembled. "Hush," Cersei whispered. "You are a lion. I'm scared." Lions can be scared. Joffrey says they can't. Joffrey is often stupid. The boy looked up, shocked enough to stop crying. Cersei laughed softly and kissed his head. "Do not repeat that." Across the chamber, Sansa watched her with those tully blue eyes. For a moment, Cersei hated her less. The girl had lost father, sister, home, betrothal, songs, and still sat straight because courtesy was the only armor left to her. Cersei knew something of armor that did not fit. "If the city falls," Cersei said to the room, raising her voice, "you will all be taken gently into the care of King Stannis, who is known throughout the realm for warmth, mercy, and love of beautiful prisoners." No one laughed. Good, she thought. Let them understand. In the yard below, Jaime paced. He should have been at the river. Every part of him trained for war demanded it. The clash, the danger, the clean honesty of a man trying to kill the man before him, that he understood. Instead, Tywin's last command held him at the Red Keep with a picked guard, responsible for Cersei, Tommen, Joffrey, if the boy returned, the royal household, the secret, the lie, the whole rotten golden tower. The city burned, and Jaime guarded a cage. He could hear battle even through stone. The roar of men, the dull boom of something collapsing, bells gone frantic. Once, a cheer rose so loudly he thought the walls had been breached. Then another sound swallowed it, and no messenger came. A young guardsman near the gate crossed himself again and again. "Stop that," Jaime said. The boy froze. "My lord? If the gods were going to save us, they'd have started before tonight." The boy went pale. Jaime sighed. He had not meant to frighten him. Or perhaps he had. It was hard to tell anymore where cruelty ended and habit began. He looked up at the holdfast windows. Cersei was above. Tommen too. Sansa.a. Highborn women pretending stone made them safe. If Stannis breached the Red Keep, Jaime knew what he was expected to do. Get Cersei out if possible. Kill Stannis if near enough. Protect Tommen. Protect Joffrey, though the thought sat poorly. Protect the lie because the truth had become too large to survive. And if capture was certain, Cersei had asked him once years ago whether he would kill her rather than let Robert have her. He had said yes because they had been young and naked and tragedy had seemed romantic before consequence taught it weight. Now he did not know. That frightened him more than Stannis. At the river, Tyrion led a sortie because no one taller with better songs had the sense to do it. "Those are brave men knocking at our door," he shouted to the defenders near the mudgate. "Let's go kill them before they become rude guests." Some laughed. Some stared. Some followed because men will follow a voice that sounds certain when the world is on fire. They went out into smoke, mud, and madness. Tyrion's horse nearly threw him. A man with a stag on his shield swung an axe at his head. One of the mountain clans took the man in the knee, and then the throat. Tyrion hacked at shapes, screamed orders, slipped, rose, cursed his legs, cursed his father, cursed Stannis, cursed every singer who had ever made battle sound clean. For a while, they pushed. For a while, he believed it might be enough. Then Sir Mandon Moore tried to kill him. It happened in green light, amid screams. The White Knight appeared at Tyrion's side as if summoned by shadow. His sword came down not at a stag man but at Tyrion's face. Tyrion saw it late. Pain exploded. The world tilted. He fell backward, blood hot across his eyes. Mandon stepped closer to finish him. A spear took the knight through the side. Podrick Payne stood behind it, pale as milk, hands locked around the shaft. Mandon looked surprised, which was more expression than Tyrion had ever seen from him. Then he fell into the river mud and vanished beneath trampling feet. Tyrion tried to thank the boy, but his mouth filled with blood. Above the city, dawn had not yet come, but another light appeared beyond the camps. Torches. Many torches. At first, men thought Stannis had more forces arriving. Then horns sounded from the west, deep and rolling. Banners emerged from darkness. Lions first, crimson and gold, then roses. Hundreds of them, gold on green, bright as summer even in smoke. Tywin Lannister had come. With him rode the Reach. The attack struck Stannis' rear like a closing door. Men who had climbed walls found retreat cut off. Men waiting in reserve turned to face fresh cavalry. Tyrell knights in green enamel crashed through exhausted lines. Lannister men advanced with grim discipline beneath their lord's command. The river trapped what the fire had not consumed. Stannis fought on. Of course he did. Witnesses later claimed he was among the last to leave the shore, teeth bared, sword black with soot, dragged back by his own men while he cursed them for living. Davos Seaworth vanished into the burning river. Hundreds drowned. Thousands died. The king who was not king retreated into smoke, not broken in belief, but broken in army. By morning, King's Landing still stood. The city stank of victory. Tywin entered the throne room beneath cheers that had been purchased by bread, fear, and relief. Joffrey sat the Iron Throne, wearing triumph he had not earned. Cersei stood beside him, pale from the night but smiling because survival could imitate joy. Margaery Tyrell entered later, radiant in a gown the color of new leaves, and the court seemed to breathe toward her. Sansa watched from the side, forgotten for the moment, which was the kindest thing court had given her in months. Jaime stood near the base of the throne. Tyrion was carried in days later, feverish, scarred, and already being written out of the songs. Tywin knelt before Joffrey because appearances mattered. The boy beamed. "Rise, grandfather," Joffrey said. "You have saved my city." Tywin rose. "No," he said mildly. "We have preserved your throne." Joffrey frowned, sensing correction but not grasping its full insult. The court applauded anyway. The rewards began. Mace Tyrell swelled with office. Loras joined the Kingsguard. Margaery's betrothal was proclaimed. Sansa was released from Joffrey's promise and kept his ward. Littlefinger received Harrenhal for services no one could quite name honestly. Pycelle praised the gods. Varys praised peace. Singers praised Joffrey until even the walls seemed embarrassed. That evening, Tywin summoned Cersei, Jaime, and Tyrion to the Tower of the Hand. He let them wait. Cersei arrived first, angry because Margaery's presence had already begun stealing light. Jaime came next, silent. Tyrion came last, helped by Podrick, face bandaged, one green eye visible and amused despite pain. "A family gathering," Tyrion said. "How ominous." Tywin dismissed Podrick. The door closed. For a moment he looked at his children, Cersei, Queen and Catastrophe. Jaime, sword and shame. Tyrion, unwanted, and indispensable. All Joanna's children. All his failures, though not in equal measure. The city is safe, Cersei said. The city is hungry, indebted, frightened, and ruled by Joffrey, Tywin replied. Safe is too generous. He's king. He is a liability with a crown. Jaime laughed under his breath. Cersei turned on him. You find that amusing? I find very little amusing lately. Tyrion lowered himself carefully into a chair. I find surviving assassination by one of our own white cloaks less amusing than expected. Do we know who gave the order? Silence. Cersei looked away. Tyrion saw. Pain made his smile uglier. Ah. Tywin's gaze sharpened. This ends now. What does? Cersei asked. Indulgence. She stiffened. Joffrey will marry Margaery and be guided publicly by her charm and privately by my counsel. You will not interfere out of jealousy. Jealousy? Do not waste my time. Jaime will remain in the King's Guard, visible, obedient, and away from your chambers. Jaime's face hardened. Tyrion will serve where I place him until his usefulness is exhausted. How comforting to be included, Tyrion said. Tywin ignored him. Stannis lives. Robb Stark remains in the field. Eddard Stark has reached the wall, and every day he remains alive is both shield and threat. The secret endures because victory makes men prefer silence. Lose once, and every whisper returns louder. Abio. Cersei's voice dropped. You speak as if we are already defeated. I speak as if I know what victory costs. Jaime looked at him. And what does this one cost? Tywin's answer came without hesitation. Everything unnecessary. Tyrion laughed softly, then winced. In our family, that may include most of us. No one smiled. Outside, King's Landing celebrated. Fires burned on the river where ships still smoldered. The small folk ate Tyrell bread and called it royal mercy. Bells rang for deliverance. In taverns, men sang of the young king's courage, the queen's grace, the dwarf's trickery, the old lion's arrival, the rose maiden's beauty, the false king's defeat. Already the truth was being rearranged into something easier to swallow. Far north, Eddard Stark reached the wall alive, thinner, older, carrying secrets no vows could make untrue. In the Riverlands, Robb Stark read of the Blackwater and understood that the war had become harder. On Dragonstone, Stannis Baratheon survived defeat with the fury of a man who considered survival an obligation owed by others. In the Red Keep, Margaery Tyrell smiled at Joffrey and began learning the exact dimensions of the monster she had agreed to marry. Cersei watched her from across the hall and felt hatred bloom like a poisonous flower. Jaime watched Cersei watching Margaery and wondered when love had become duty, when duty had become prison, and when prison had begun to feel deserved. Tyrion lay awake with half his face on fire and understood that he had saved a city that would never thank him, for a family that would rather bury him than praise him. And Tywin Lannister sat alone in the Tower of the Hand, writing letters by candlelight. He had discovered the secret first. He had contained Jon Arryn, moved Cersei, bent Jaime, survived Ned Stark, checked Joffrey, courted the Tyrells, broken Stannis at the Blackwater, preserved the throne, and kept the name Lannister above the filth from which it had risen. The realm called that victory. Tywin knew better. A lie could be defended by armies, sealed by marriages, fed by grain, perfumed by singers, and enthroned beneath a crown. It could outlive honest men. It could command swords. It could make children kings and kings' corpses. But a lie did not become stone because men built castles around it. It remained a lie, and somewhere beneath all the gold, it waited to rot.